Welcome to Friday Night Torah Study! Woo! And of Erev Shabbat dinner. All right, so welcome to our Friday Night Torah Study. We do this every Friday night at 7:30 with the exception of Feast. So if you like and subscribe, you'll get the notifications when those things change, but you'll be posted and be informed about all the upcoming events and the schedule changes, so on and so forth. But we do this every Friday night at 7:30 again, and we usually start the evening, off about 6 o'clock with our Erev Shabbat liturgy and fellowship meal together. So we open Shabbat together, and we close Shabbat together, which is really exciting. We've been doing this now for a few months, and it's really exciting to be able to break bread and bring Shabbat in together with Mishpachah, and again, to close it after services when we have a meal, and nobody wants to go home, and so we got to force you out and then go have another meal and hang out some more until we pass out from exhaustion. But it's so fun, so if you're not here, you're missing out. And if you are here, you know how much fun we have. So we're excited about that. So this is our, so what we do, because I told you what it is 12 times, so what we do is we have specials throughout our Torah studies, and we have a special, as we did last week, with Rabbi and Selena. They're going to present to us items in the tabernacle as we go through the Torah portion, and they're going to explain what it is. What's the Torah portion of this week? Tetzaveh. Tetzaveh is the Torah portion this week, and they're going to go through it very exhaustively, and it's awesome to see what they go through. And what's even more awesome is to know that the kids get this kind of interaction every week with the Parsha Pearls program found at MTOI.org, and that's also ran, edited, and managed by Rabbi Julie Berkson, who you'll meet tonight. Yeah. She does an amazing job with that, her and her team, so we appreciate all of you that do that. So we usually start our services with prayer and praise. So if you have a prayer or a praise, you can stand up in the middle of the floor and line up. If you're online, you can start typing in now. We have our Shamish team online, monitoring the room and keeping everybody in order, keeping an eye on that. We have Shamish Rob and Shamish Gary. I almost called him Shamish Waffle. In the room. Is Shamish Kurt on that too? I'm sure he is. He's always there. All right. So we're going to start here locally with Miss Jessica. Hi.
So mine is like a prayer and praise, I guess. My grandfather passed this morning, and it's not a sad thing. He was older. He had cancer and liver failure, and so it's definitely a praise because he was in a lot of pain, and he was definitely ready to sleep. So, and then prayers for my mom. She's taking it a lot harder than me. I don't really cry when people die. I have a hard time with that. So she's having a really hard time, and then my grandmother's having an even harder time. So if you could just pray for the family, and then I'm definitely happy he's not suffering. So.
Amen. We can certainly pray for that. All right, Shamish Waffle's coming up. About to say, did I scare everybody away from prayer and praise too? But you guys, I know what you're doing. You're saving it for tomorrow. That's what you're doing. I understand. I got a mute button. They installed me a mute button up here, so if you get up and you start goofing off, I'm just hit the mute button. No, I don't have a mute button. If your prayer praise is too long, I'm going to just hit, boop, just mute. No, I'm kidding. Shamish Waffle.
Okay. See, I know about... Oh, wait a minute. Just kidding.
I didn't hit it yet.
Prayer for work. The next project, I know passes are coming up, and I like to have something booked for after that. I can walk in and not have to worry because I like to take the time off to help get things ready.
Amen.
Abba's been very grateful for us the first 2 months of the year, so just, for the next gig to come up. So we're looking for that. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. You can certainly pray for that. All right. Anybody else? All right. Live stream, you ready? I can hit the mute button if you need me to. I just go ahead and.
We got a few. They're still steady coming in.
Okay.
Pamela Schuford, prayer for me, please. I have to be checked for a hernia and possible surgery. Praise Ken is still doing wonderful. Mm-hmm. Judith York, praise on the list to move to Cleveland, Tennessee on the 6-month list.
Amen.
Shirley Akpalu, prayer for a friend in need of comfort and employment. Line upon line, continued prayer for father-in-law recovery from a leg amputation. We have quite a few unspoken. from Yeshua's Way Biblical Lifestyle. May I request prayer for my marriage? He is not tore. Lots of issues arise with this. We have since separated. Anonymous mom, prayers for our grandchildren, please. They will have a hard time without their dad. Prayer also for Ben. He is running a fever, so we won't be able to attend in person tomorrow. Kevin Newkirk, prayer for my knees and asking for healing from the mishpachah. Also unspoken prayer for me and the family. Amen. Carmela Lazarus, prayers for my teenage daughter who is cutting. She is rebelling against Yah, and it's affecting her. Mark Menzer, prayer for a job. I've applied for a few, and I'm waiting. Job hunt has gone on way too long, so I can really use some prayers. Some other prayers for some employment and work praises. Employment prayers. Rachel Ann, prayer for my grandma who is in the hospital and for the whole family. From blessed and highly favored, pray for an autoimmune issue and a chronic pain. Anonymous mom prays our oldest son. He is transgender. Came back to our daughter's house with the family, and there was some reconciliation and healing. Prayer for continued healing in our family. Thank you.
Amen.
Kiara, prayer for my oldest sister, Emily, and her little girl, Josie. They are sick with the cold. Terry Zimmerman, please pray for Anna and Jonathan this weekend, as this is the due date of baby. Please pray for our foster babes. So much going on and such a corrupt system. Kelly Wharton, I want to praise Yahweh for you all and the prayer and your prayers. My headaches have lightened up, and thank you so much for your prayers. Yahweh is so good. Margaret Pollard, prayers for Nancy, who has had recent cancer surgery. Some more unspoken. Lisa Joe Conamore Beard says, praise y'all. I made it through my first week of overcoming an addiction. I prayed that if he could hold off the temptation for a little bit more so I can not be tempted. Some praises for trials people have gone through this week. Robert and Sarah Brackett, pray for Sarah. She has lost her voice. And that's all the urgents online. I have one for me. It's my wife. She was here a little earlier, but she went to work last night, and her back's still a little sore, so she stayed home for the rest of the evening. So that's all we have.
Awesome. We also want to keep in prayer Rabbi Tom and Rebitz and Joanne. Also, Mark Beasley and Miss Kelly, as well as the Zix, and she was just online giving her praise report. So we want to keep that family in prayer. We went to go be with them. It was Wednesday, I believe, down to be with them during a time of bereavement. And so we want to keep all those things in prayer. I also want us to be praying about the increase, and me and Rabbi talked about it a little bit today and yesterday, the increase in all of our wonderful mishpachah, especially those out online, that value counseling so much that you refer your friends and family who are not in the walk for counseling. Could be a praise. The prayer is, they're not in this walk, and you referred them for counseling, and we were able to help each person that called to give them instruction, but it could be a little challenging when we're trying to take care of our own mishpachah worldwide and locally to get these phone calls and said, well, how did you find us? Oh, my relative, that's part of the mishpachah, MTOI worldwide, told me to call and I could get help. So we don't mind helping, but we don't really have the time or the staffing to help everybody, especially those that we have to explain our points of view, even though they value the counseling and have taken it. We pray. But if you do that, please don't. Please don't do that. And if you feel led to do that, call us first and let us know, and we can tell you if it'll be a good idea, if we can even help them or not. Because we get a lot with you guys, as you know, and we don't mind. But we are starting to get an increase in those that call. Do you know people watch the service? They come across the service. That's why we talk about the numbers. They come across the service, and they just call. They're not in the walk. They just saw a teaching. We get those calls all week, and those are great because these are people that Abba is touching, possibly, or poking their bubble, and we get those phone calls. Go ahead, Rabbi. It's broke. Go ahead. Save that one.
I'm waiting for this one to go on, but he hasn't done it. I got two in my hand. There we go. All right, this way I don't have to try to adjust that for you. All right, just wanted to make sure to kind of make a point. Look, I think it's fantastic that you're blessed enough that you want to have others possibly receive similar blessing for getting counseling. But also understand part of the reason why it's effective with you is because of the way you view me, him, and the vertical structure. See, so while you're getting these great results, you think, oh, I got these great results. My aunt's going to get the same great results, or my cousin, or my sister. Well, maybe. It really depends on how they view the one giving the information, okay? Because remember, when Yeshua healed people, he said, your way of perceiving me and what's going on, your belief has made you well, right? And so if they come, they may come with belief. Look, there was a Roman soldier came with belief. We're open to all of that, but also recognize that at this point, the bigger problem is capacity. Okay, we're already stretching our capacity with the people in the ministry because you have to understand that we're very blessed to have skill sets that are life coaching type skill sets, even though that's not necessarily what our job is. And we spend probably the vast majority of our time dealing with that kind of stuff. And, we're happy to do that because we're qualified to do that, and we do help people when we do that. That being said, I think I messed Robinson's thing up because I touched it and moved the slides. So she's going to get mad at me now. All right. So I have no idea what I did. All right. I touched the iPad. Okay, so that being said, again, we're not trying to, we're a ministry, so we want to help everybody. If we had the capacity, we would take come one, come all, and maybe they'd be led to feel, because this ministry blessed them, and this is a ministry of Yeshua, in a Torah-based concept and context, that may inspire them to seek it. So we don't want to cut all that off, but you might want to just call us first, like you said, okay? But I did want to just come up to explain why, for those of you that have the great success in taking the counsel, is because you took the counsel. And you took the counsel because you believed in what Father was doing through us. If you didn't believe that, you're taking the counsel, we're not getting the same results, because you wouldn't handle it the same way. So I just want to make sure that we're clear about that. All right, back to him. Oh, wait, Brianna wanted to get me on. He was going to take a picture.
I was moving the mic away.
Okay, I'll look out this way. I don't know what she's doing. Sorry, we're trying to get some pictures and stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, Rabbi. All right, can we get one of the gentlemen to raise their hand to pray? All right, I saw Philip Mason first. All right, Philip is going to come and pray for us. That's because he gave me a special hug, so that's why. It's an inside thing. It's inside.
All right. Abba, Father, just pray that you would bless us as we go about the study tonight, and pray that we would all receive as you teach us through Rebison and her lesson, and pray that everything would go well. We ask all these things in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.
Amen. All right, now I'm going to welcome up Rabbi Steve.
It seems like I was just here. All right. So it's my joy and pleasure to share with you one of my greatest blessings, which is my beautiful wife and her incredible talent for, the children's program. And so, this is the kind of stuff, by the way, that you get in the children's program. I mean, this is the level of quality of material and artwork and things, and you're going to get to see a lot of that tonight. But as I've told you often, I think all of you could benefit from the YMTOI Parsha Pros program, okay? I don't care if you've been doing this your whole life. You're going to learn something, okay? It's a fantastic program, and she does a great job with her team putting it together. And, you know, every year when we get to this kind of 5 or 6 week window, it gets a little bit, you know, tough to know what to talk about because it's really a lot of stuff about building the tabernacle, how things function, the garments, etc. And then we get to the offerings and how the offerings function within the context. Of course, it makes a lot more sense when you get to Leviticus and you get to the offerings if you already saw how everything was supposed to play out in the tabernacle. Okay? And I think it really works beautifully to have visuals, you know, which I never use. So it works out great that she's got these tremendous visuals that, you know, her and her team have put together. And so it's just fantastic. So over the next couple of weeks, you know, we're going to keep having Rebbitzin come up here and share those things. I'll still come back up afterwards and connect some of the dots together that were from that week's, you know, Torah portion that weren't necessarily covered in the, you know, discussion about the visuals and the tabernacle, etc. So with that, I'm going to bring up Rebbitzin Julie. And she's assisted by Selena.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Wow, thank you. My fan club right here, thank you. So I'll look at you when I'm nervous. Gotcha, thank you. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to tonight's Torah study. I'm very excited with Selena to present Tetzaveh. Tetzaveh in Hebrew means you shall command, and that always comes from the first few words that starts the Torah portion. So tonight we're going to be looking at the set-apart garments of the high priest and the sons of Aharon, and we're also going to dig into the ordination of the priesthood, and I think you're going to really, really enjoy these visuals. And before I start, I want to thank Vera again. Thank you so much. She spent yesterday drawing like 6 new drawings for me because I just had to have them. And they're really going to make a big difference, you'll see. All right, without further ado, we're going to start Parashat Tetzaveh.
Okay, we're in Shemot 27:20.
Oh, we can't see it up in front of us. There we go.
Oh, thank you. And you are to command the children of Israel to bring you clear oil of pressed olives for the light, to cause the lamp to burn continually.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is a flask that has olive oil in it, and that's what they use to light the lampstand that we talked about last week when we were talking about some of the materials that were brought and making the furnishings inside the set-apart place. So the oil for the light is also described in Exodus 25:6, which is what we looked at last week, and then in chapter 35, verses 8 and 14, chapter 39, verse 37, and then the exact same wording is also in Leviticus 24:1-4. So this oil that they used was to keep the lampstand burning continually. So it was the Ner Tamid, and Tamid means daily offerings, and it was to be burning daily. And then the Ner is the light.
27:21. In the tent of appointment, outside the veil, which is before the witness, Aharon and his sons are to tend it from evening until morning before Yahweh, a law forever to their generations from the children of Israel.
Yes, so what we're looking at here is actually Aharon lighting the lampstand and his sons there ready to help him. And then you can see behind the lampstand those gold boards that we talked about last week. So we spared no expense to attention to detail here. You're welcome.
28:1. And you bring near Aharon your brother and his sons with him from among the children of Israel, for serving as a priest to me, Aharon, Nadab, and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar, the sons of Aharon. And you shall make set-apart garments for Aharon your brother, for esteem and for comeliness.
Okay, so what we are looking at here is Aharon there in the middle. There he is. And then there will be a test. You'll have to remember their names. This is Nadab. And then Abihu. And then Eleazar, who is going to be the next high priest after his father passes. And then Ithamar. And later we're going to find out that Nadab and Abihu will be killed because of bringing strange fire. And then Eleazar and Ithamar will be overseeing all the work of the Gershonites, the Merarites, and the Kehatites.
28:3. And you speak to all the wise of heart, whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom, and they shall make garments. They shall make the garments of Aharon to set him apart, for him to serve as priest to me.
Okay, so here we see the actual workings going on. That is Aholiab. He was an engraver, so we can see him there engraving in the shoulder, the stones in the shoulder garment. We see a woman in the middle there spinning yarn, and then another woman working at the loom and working with the wool to make the red, blue, and scarlet material. And we see that it says that Yahweh gave him a spirit of wisdom, and the Hebrew word for wisdom is chokmah, and that is the ability to judge correctly. So it was just something that Yahweh wanted to make sure was a certain way, so he actually put this in the people so that they could do the service in working in the tabernacle.
28:4. And these are the garments which they make: a breastplate,
There we go. There's your breastplate.
a shoulder garment,
Also known as an ephod.
a robe,
And this is the blue robe, and it was made from one piece, and it just went over their head.
an embroidered long shirt,
And there we go, and that's white.
a turban,
And there we go.
and a girdle.
Okay, the girdle is also known as a sash or a belt. And the colors for it are given in Exodus 39:29. And it is believed that only the high priest wore the colored girdle, and that the sons of Aharon would have worn white.
And they shall make set-apart garments for Aharon your brother and his sons, for him to serve as a priest to me. And they shall take the gold, and the blue, and the purple, and the scarlet material, and the fine linen, and they shall make the shoulder garment of gold, of blue, and purple, and scarlet material, and fine woven linen, the work of a skilled workman. It is to have 2 shoulder pieces joined at its 2 edges.
One second. There's the shoulder piece there and there.
And so it is joined together. And the embroidered band of the shoulder garment, which is on it, is of the same workmanship, made of gold, of blue, and purple, and scarlet material, and fine woven linen. And you shall take 2 shoham stones, and engrave on them the name of the sons of Israel. 6 of their names on one stone, and the remaining 6 names on the other stone, according to their birth, with the work of an engraver in stone, like the engravings of a signet. Engrave the 2 stones with the names of the sons of Israel. Set them in settings of gold. And you shall put the 2 stones on the shoulder pieces of the shoulder garment as stones of remembrance for the sons of Israel. And Aharon shall bear their names before Yahweh on his 2 shoulders for a remembrance.
Yes, so different writings will say that it was either the birth order that was put on the stone. Some say it was the order of encampment, and we chose just to do the birth order. And so just imagine that Aharon would see this, and he would remember that he is representing all the 12 tribes, and that he would have to take this very seriously.
28:13, and you shall make settings of gold, and 2 chains of clean gold, like braided cords, and fasten the braided chains to the settings. And you shall make a breastplate of right ruling, a work of a skilled workman, like the work of the shoulder garment. Make it of gold, of blue and purple and scarlet material, and fine woven linen. It is square, doubled, a span its length, and a span its width. And you shall put settings of stones in it, 4 rows of stones. The first row is a ruby, a topaz,
Oh, hold on. Okay, so here we go. Here's your ruby.
a topaz, and an emerald. And the second row is a turquoise, a sapphire, and a diamond. And the third row is a jacinth, an agate, and an amethyst. And the fourth row
Oh, hold on. There we go. Fourth row.
And the fourth row is a beryl and a shoham and a jasper. They are set in gold settings. And the stones are according to the names of the sons of Israel, 12 according to their names, like the engravings of a signet, each one with its own name, for the 12 tribes. And you shall make braided chains of corded work for the breastplate at the end of clean gold. And you shall make 2 rings of gold for the breastplate, and shall put the 2 rings on the 2 ends of the breastplate. And you shall put 2 cords of the gold into the 2 rings, which are on the ends of the breastplate. And the other 2 ends of the 2 cords you fasten to the 2 settings, and put them on the shoulder pieces of the shoulder garment in the front. And you shall make 2 rings of gold, and shall put them on the 2 ends of the breastplate, on the edge of it, which is on the inner side of the shoulder garment. You shall make 2 rings of gold, and put them on the 2 shoulder pieces underneath the shoulder garment, on the front of it, close to the seam above the embroidered band of the shoulder garment. And they bind the breastplate by means of its rings to the rings of the shoulder garment, using a blue cord, so that it is above the embroidered band of the shoulder garment, so that the breastplate does not come loose from the shoulder garment. And Aharon shall bear the names of the sons of Israel on the breastplate of right ruling over his heart, when he goes into the set-apart place for a remembrance before Yahweh continually. And into the breastplate of right ruling you shall put the Urim and the Tumim, and they shall be on the heart of Aharon when he goes in before Yahweh. And Aharon shall bear the right ruling of the children of Israel on his heart before Yahweh continually.
Okay, a lot of detail in how to make this. So we try to follow it when it said like the rings were on the inside and they were attached to the gold cords. So we try to put all that detail into it. So those are the braided cords that would attach to the ephod where the 2 shoham stones were. And then the actual breastplate with the gold trim around it was 9 inches each way, just to give you a perspective, 9 inches. The jewels themselves were 2 by 3 inches, okay? And then the shoham stones that were on the shoulder garment, there is also one that was on the breastplate. And so on the top row, for those of you who took Hebrew class, from right to left, we have Reuben, then, no, okay, so we have, I wish it was easier to point. There's Reuben, then Shimon, then Levi, then Yehuda, then Dan, then Naphtali, then Issachar, Asher, and Gad, Zebulon, Joseph, and Benjamin. Okay? So that represented all the 12. And then, because it was double, it was folded over, they were able to put those 2 stones. The Urim represents the light, and so that's the white one there. And then the Tumim stands for perfection. And so I'm not exactly sure, it doesn't give us a lot of detail how this worked, but apparently Aharon would put them inside the breastplate, and then he would ask for judgment. And somehow Yahweh would do something to the stone so that it would reveal how he would judge and do righteous right ruling. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, so that was, the breastplate went on the high priest's garment. So we'll move on to the next piece.
28:31, and you shall make a robe of the shoulder garment, all of blue. And the opening for his head shall be in the middle of it, a woven binding all around its opening, like the opening in a scaled armor, so that it does not tear. And on its hem you shall make pomegranates of blue and purple and scarlet material all around its hem, and bells of gold between them all around. A golden bell and a pomegranate, a golden bell and a pomegranate, on the hem of the robe all around. And it shall be upon Aharon to attend in, and its sound shall be heard when he goes into the set-apart place before Yahweh, and when he comes out, so that he does not die.
Okay, so that's about all we know about the golden bell and the pomegranate, is that we're just told that the bell was on the hem of it so that they could hear him and make sure he was okay. Now, pomegranate, this is the first mention of pomegranate in the scriptures, and also for the golden bells. And it is said that in Jewish thought that pomegranates have 613 seeds, and that represents the 613 commandments. And pomegranates are also one of the 7 species in the land of Israel. And they also represent royalty, because at the edge you can see it looks like there's a little crown. Yeah. Okay, next.
28:36, and you shall make a plate of clean gold and engrave on it, like the engraving of a signet, set apartness to Yahweh. And you shall put it on a blue cord, and it shall be on the turban. It is to be on the front of the turban. And it shall be on the forehead of Aharon, and Aharon shall bear the guilt of the Good grief. And Aharon shall bear the guilt of the set-apart gifts which the children of Israel set apart in all their set-apart gifts. And it shall always be on his forehead for acceptance for them before Yahweh.
Okay, so this says in Hebrew, Kodesh the Yahweh, so that's set apartness to Yahweh. And only the high priest wore this. Now, his sons wore the white turban, but he had that special plate. And again, just all these constant visuals are reminders for Aharon to take his job very seriously. Next.
28:39. And you shall weave the long shirt of fine linen, and shall make the turban of fine linen, and you shall make the girdle of woven work.
Okay.
And make long shirts for Aharon's sons, and you shall make girdles for them, and you shall make turbans for them for esteem and comeliness. And you shall put them on Aharon, your brother, and on his sons with him, and shall anoint them, and shall ordain them, and shall set them apart, and they shall serve as priests to me. And make linen trousers for them, to cover their nakedness, reaching from the waist to the thighs.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is actually the 4 pieces that the sons of Aharon would have worn. And most likely for the Day of Atonement, Aharon would have changed out of his high priest garments that are of all the colors and worn this. And we'll get into that more when we get into Leviticus 16, which talks about the Day of Atonement.
28:43. And they shall be on Aharon and on his sons when they come into the tent of appointment, or when they come near the slaughter place, to attend in the set-apart place, so that they do not bear crookedness and die. A law forever to him and to his seed after him.
Okay, so here we see them now fully dressed in their set-apart garments, and they're very beautiful. Okay, now we're going to go into chapter 29, which delves into the ordination of the priesthood. But before that, I want to show you the craft and the notebook page that the children in the MTOI program would make for the last lesson. So Katan A does a craft, and they have a paper doll, and they dress him. So he has the turban. I left it has the set-apart plate on it. And then this is, there we go, the shoulder garment. And then there's the breastplate. We had to attach the rest of the shoulder garment to it because it's almost virtually impossible to make it another way. But at least he's dressed. And then, I promise children, he's not going to be naked. And there's his blue robe with the bells and the pomegranates. Thank you. Okay, brace yourselves here. Here's his white tunic. Woo! And he's got his trousers. Okay, come on, this is for modesty. Those are his trousers. Those are like swim shorts, practically. Okay, so there we go. We have Aharon. He's looking very nice and buff. I imagine he was. They worked hard. Okay, and then, oh wow, wait till you see what Katan Bet does. This is just super duper cool. So they also make a doll, but it's more realistic. We actually have the material for the shoulder garment that we colored the fabric, the white felt. So you can undress him also. We actually put stones in his breastplate, and then we put the shoham stones on the shoulder. We made him the sash that was red, blue, and purple. And then, remember the breastplate tied at the bottom with blue? We did that as well. And then at the top with gold. So a lot of detail went into it. And then you see the pomegranates and the gold bells. And then he also has his turban with the blue cord, and it goes on his head. Thank you. And then our Katan Bet children always put Hebrew words connected to the Torah portion. So we have all the words for the set-apart garments. We have the girdle, avnet. We have the turban, mitznefet. We have the breastplate, hoshen. Mail for the robe. Ephod for the shoulder garment. Ketanet for the long shirt. And Kohen for priest. Thank you. All right. So that's just a taste of what our MTOI children get to do. And now we're going to learn about how they were ordained.
Chapter 29. And this is the task you shall do to them to set them apart to serve to me as priests. Take 1 young bull and 2 rams, perfect ones, and unleavened bread, and unleavened cakes mixed with oil, and unleavened wafers anointed with oil, to make these of wheat flour. And you shall put them in 1 basket, and bring them in the basket along with the bull and the 2 rams.
Okay, so these are the items that Aharon and his sons would have brought on the day that they were ordained, and these are all going to be used for different sacrifices, which we're going to go ahead and dig into right now.
29:4. Then you shall bring Aharon and his sons to the door of the tent of appointment and wash them with water.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is Moshe. He's serving as a type of priest here. He's going to be doing all the work. After they're ordained, they're going to take over the mantle. But before that, Moshe, as the Melchizedek priesthood, is going to be doing this to ordain them. And so here you have that bronze basin that we talked about last week, and here's Aharon, and he's getting himself washed, and then his children are waiting in line to be next, and they're going to be ordained.
29:5. And you shall take the garments, and shall put on Aharon the long shirt, and the robe of the shoulder garment, and the shoulder garment, and the breastplate, and shall gird him with the embroidered band of the shoulder garment, and shall put the turban on his head, and shall put the set-apart sign of dedication on the turban, and shall take the anointing oil, and pour it on his head to anoint him.
Okay, so one thing to remember is we're looking at all these slides in chapter 29. That again, Moshe is doing all of this to the priesthood. Okay, he's there the whole way. So first he's going to address Aharon, starting with him, and then he's going to take that anointing oil and he's going to pour it over him.
29:8. And you shall bring his sons, and put long shirts on them, and shall gird them with girdles, Aharon and his sons, and put the turbans on them, and the priesthood shall be theirs for an everlasting law. So you shall ordain Aharon and his sons.
Okay, so now he's dressing the sons.
And you shall bring near the bull before the tent of appointment, and Aharon and his sons shall lay their hands on the head of the bull.
And that's what we have in this drawing here, is you can see Aharon and all his 4 sons are putting their hands on that bull, and they're identifying with the sacrifice.
And you shall slay the bull before Yahweh by the door of the tent of appointment, and take some of the blood of the bull and put it on the horns of the slaughter place with your finger, and pour all the blood beside the base of the slaughter place.
Okay, so again, Moshe is doing all this. He's killing the bull, and then he's going to first take the blood of the bull and put it on the horns of the altar of incense. And it's much more clear in Leviticus 4 when it talks about the sin offering. It's going to talk about that blood was put on the altar of incense. In this chapter, it just says altar. So I would have just naturally assumed, okay, we're going to put it on the bronze altar. But no, when I went further into different parshas, it actually said that it was the altar of incense. Oh, I flipped the slide. That was easy to do. Okay, and then after that, he's going to go ahead and take some more of the blood, the rest of the blood, and pour it on the base of the bronze altar.
And you shall take all the fat that covers the entrails, and the appendage on the liver, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them, and burn them on the slaughter place. But the flesh of the bull, and its skin, and its dung, you shall burn with fire outside the camp. It is a sin offering.
All right, so we're going to learn more about the sin offering in Leviticus chapter 4, but this is just normal protocol for a sin offering, is that you would take the fat from the animal, and then the kidneys, 2 kidneys, you could see here the little red kidneys there, and you would burn them on the altar, and then the rest of the animal would be taken outside to a clean place and then offered on another type of altar. And remember, no altars can be made from cut material. It has to be natural. Okay, so it couldn't be hewn stone.
And take 1 ram, and Aharon and his sons shall lay their hands on the head of the ram.
We got our cute little ram here, and they've got their hands on him. And now we went from the sin offering we're going to now go into, this ram is going to be a burnt offering, and we're going to learn about that.
And you shall slay the ram, and you shall take its blood and sprinkle it all around the slaughter place.
Okay, so you can see we put a lot of detail into these pictures. So we've got the knife and then the ram, and then Moshe's taking the blood. Again, Moshe is doing all of this. The priesthood has not been ordained yet, so they're not doing any of this. He is sprinkling that blood all over the bronze altar.
And cut the ram in pieces, and wash its entrails and its legs, and place them upon its pieces and on its head. And you shall burn the entire ram on the slaughter place. It is an ascending offering to Yahweh. It is a sweet fragrance, an offering made by fire to Yahweh.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is how a burnt offering would be done. So you would cut the animal in pieces. So here's the pieces. And then you would also take its head, so that's the little ram head, and then you would take its fat, right? And that you've cut all that, and then you would take out the legs, right there, and then the entrails, and you would wash them with water, And then piled up here on the altar that was sprinkled with blood by Moshe, and then it would all be burned. So it's like completely burned up. That's what a burnt offering is. None of it goes to the priest. None of it gets eaten. It all goes to Yahweh, and it's a sweet fragrance to him. Yes, it is.
And you shall take the second ram, and Aharon and his sons shall lay their hands on the head of the ram.
Now we got our cute little second ram here, and this is actually the ram of ordination. This was just done for this specific event, and the ram of ordination is also a type of peace offering. So there's going to be a meal involved, and we'll get into that.
And you shall slay the ram, and take some of its blood, and put it on the tip of the right ear of Aharon, and on the tip of the right ear of his sons, on the thumb of their right hand, and on the big toe of their right foot, and sprinkle the blood all around on the slaughter place.
Okay, so we've got that same sprinkling of blood that was done on the altar. So you imagine they had to clean the altar and then start all over again. It was a lengthy process. And then, it's hard for us to understand it, but they actually, put the blood on their right ear, their right toe, and their right thumb. And that was part of the ordination process.
And you shall take some of the blood that is on the slaughter place, and some of the anointing oil, and sprinkle it on Aharon, and on his garments, and on his sons, and on the garments of his sons with him. And he and his garments shall be set apart, and his sons and the garments of his sons with him.
Okay, so really, really intense here with the oil, the anointing oil, that special oil that was made out of those special spices that were only to be used for this particular day. Was actually 7 days. We'll get into that later. But so Moshe would do this every day for 7 days. And I've got visuals, but I don't have smell, so.
29:22, and you shall take the fat of the ram, and the fat tail, and the fat that covers the entrails, and the appendage on the liver, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat on them, and the right thigh. It is for a ram of ordination. And 1 loaf of bread, and 1 cake made with oil, and 1 thin cake from the basket of the unleavened bread that is before Yahweh. And you shall put all these in the hands of Aharon, and in the hands of his sons, and you shall wave them, a wave offering before Yahweh.
So they've actually holding all these pieces. They've got the fat in their hands. They've got the 2 kidneys. They've got the right thigh. They've got the 3 breads. And remember, those 3 different unleavened breads were brought to the door of the tent of meeting at the beginning of the chapter. They were put in a basket, and now they're taking them out of the basket, and then they're a wave offering. They're being waved before Yahweh. And then, interesting fact. So in this peace offering, they say that the fat tail was also taken, so we actually put the fat tail in Aharon's left hand there. So I did a little research about that, because I'm like, when I was looking at the peace offerings, the only place it mentions a fat tail is if you're taking it from the sheep. So it could be a female ewe or a male ram. And I was like, why is it only mentioned there? Why not from the cow or the goats? Well, it turns out that sheep have a lot of fat in their tails. And as a matter of fact, I was looking up pictures of it, and there's one ram that they had where his fat tail was actually resting on a cart. It was so big and long. So that was a lot of fat. And remember, we can't have any of the fat. All the fat belongs to Yahweh, so you would have to take that off. So Actually, a ram can, 20% of its body weight can be fat from the fat tail. So that's quite a bit.
Then you shall take them from their hands and burn them on the slaughter place as an ascending offering, as a sweet fragrance before Yahweh. It is an offering made by fire to Yahweh.
Okay, so all those things that were waved by Aharon and his sons, all the fat, that fat tail, the 2 kidneys, the right thigh, and the 3 breads, they're all here. They're put on the altar and they're burned. And again, they're a sweet fragrance to Yahweh. And Moshe did this.
And you shall take the breast of the ram of Aharon's ordination and wave it, a wave offering before Yahweh, and it shall be your portion.
Okay, so this portion was for Moshe, and that's the breast from the ram of ordination.
And from the ram of ordination you shall set apart the breast of the wave offering, which is waved, and the thigh of the contribution, which is raised, of that which is for Aharon, and of that which is for his sons. And it shall be from the children of Israel for Aharon and his sons by a law forever, for it is a contribution. And it is a contribution from the children of Israel, from the slaughters of their peace offerings, their contribution to Yahweh.
So this breast and thigh that is on this plate would be part of the portion that Aharon and his sons would get when a peace offering was brought to them. Because you remember, they weren't able to do any other type of job, so how were they going to get fed? So the children of Israel, when they would bring their offerings, their peace offerings, they would get a portion of it for them and their families to eat.
And the set-apart garments of Aharon are for his sons after him, to be anointed in them and to be ordained in them. The priest from his sons in his place puts them on for 7 days, when he enters the tent of appointment to attend in the set-apart place.
Okay, so there they are in their set-apart garments, and what was said is that this was done for 7 days.
And take the ram of ordination and cook its flesh in a set-apart place. And Aharon and his sons shall eat the flesh of the ram and the bread that is in the basket by the door of the tent of appointment. And they shall eat those offerings with which the atonement was made, to ordain them, to set them apart. But let a stranger not eat them, because they are set apart.
Okay, so that's their portion. They're just sitting there nicely having a little picnic and eating the ram and the 3 different types of bread, unleavened bread.
And if any of the flesh of the ordination offerings or of the bread be left over until the morning, then you shall burn up what is left over. It is not eaten, because it is set apart.
Okay, so we're showing here that the sons coming up, so they want to make sure that all of it was burned as Yahweh had instructed.
And so you shall do to Aharon and his sons, according to all I have commanded you. 7 days you shall ordain them.
There we go. So they were ordained, and even on Shabbat.
And prepare a bull each day as a sin offering for atonement. And you shall cleanse the slaughter place when you make atonement for it. And you shall anoint it to set it apart. For 7 days you shall make atonement for the slaughter place, and set it apart. And the slaughter place shall be most set apart. Whatever touches the slaughter place is to be set apart. And this is what you prepare on the slaughter place: 2 lambs, a year old, daily, continually. Prepare the 1 lamb in the morning, and the other lamb you prepare between the evenings. and 1/10 of an ephah of flour mixed with 1/4 of a hin of pressed oil, and 1/4 of a hin of wine as a drink offering with the one lamb. And prepare the other lamb between the evenings. And with it prepare the grain offering and the drink offering as in the morning, for a sweet fragrance, an offering made by fire to Yahweh, a continual ascending offering for your generations at the door of the tent of appointment before Yahweh, where I shall meet with you to speak with you.
Okay, so here what we're looking at is the daily offerings that the priests had to do, and Numbers 28, chapter 28, verses 3 to 8, give us instructions about like the offerings for the different feast days and also the daily offerings. And so here's just the start of looking at what the daily offerings entailed. You would have those 2 lambs, you would have that fine flour, with the oil mixed in it. And then you would have the wine. Okay, and they did that twice a day, every day, forever and ever. Okay, and so in studying what a hin was, because it says it was a hin, a quarter of a hin of it was 1 hin of wine. That is about 1.5 gallons that was poured on there. And then, so this was burned on the altar.
And there I shall meet with the children of Israel, and it shall be set apart by my esteem. And I shall set apart the tent of appointment and the slaughter place, and Aharon and his sons I set apart to serve as priests to me. And I shall dwell in the midst of the children of Israel, and shall be their Elohim. And they shall know that I am Yahweh their Elohim, who brought them up out of the land of Mitzrayim to dwell in their midst. I am Yahweh their Elohim.
Amen. Okay, now we're going to go into chapter 30. And we're going to dig into the altar of incense.
And you shall make a slaughter place to burn incense on. Make it of acacia wood, a cubit long and a cubit wide. It is a square, and 2 cubits high, its horns of the same. And you shall overlay its top and its sides all around, and its horns with clean gold. And you shall make for it a molding of gold all around, and make 2 gold rings for it under the molding on both sides. Make them on its 2 sides, and they shall be holders for the poles to lift it with. And you shall make the poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold.
Okay, so I mentioned last week that the altar of incense was about the same height as the ark of the witness with the cherubim over it, so that when you were standing in the set apart place, when Aharon would look at the ark of the witness, they would be the same height. And so this is where that special incense was burned on it, and we'll dig into how that is going to be made in a future Parsha.
And you shall put it before the veil that is before the ark of the witness, before the lid of atonement that is over the witness, where I am to meet with you.
Okay, so there it is. It's in the holy place or set apart place. And then you had that curtain that was closed so that they wouldn't be able to go in there. Only Aharon could go in here. And then this was the Ark of the Witness. So it just faced it. It was like right in the middle.
And Aharon shall burn it. And Aharon shall burn on it sweet incense, morning by morning. As he tends the lamps, he shall burn incense on it. And when Aharon lights the lamps between the evenings, he shall burn incense on it, a continual incense before Yahweh throughout your generations.
Okay, so again, this was done every day as well.
Do not offer strange incense on it, or an ascending offering, or a grain offering, and do not pour a drink offering on it.
Okay, so what we did is put a big
I went
X.
too fast, didn't I?
What's that?
I went too fast.
Oh,
didn't I?
that's okay.
Do not offer strange incense on it, or an ascending offering, or a grain offering, and do not pour a drink offering on it.
Okay, so the only thing that was to be put on it was the special incense that we're going to learn about in the next Torah portion, Kitisa, how to make that incense, although we're not allowed to make it.
And Aharon shall make atonement upon its horns once a year with the blood of the sin offering of atonement. Once a year he makes atonement upon it throughout your generations. It is most set apart to Yahweh.
There we go. So there's Aharon in his linen garments that he would put on the Day of Atonement, and he would make atonement upon it there on the altar of incense. And that concludes this Torah portion. I hope you enjoyed the slides. I wanted to show you, I'm going to show them the craft and the notebook for this lesson. So when we were studying chapter 29, this is a little craft to pour the anointing oil. And then for Katan Bet, they are going to have a page that has, it's all backwards here for me, looking at the camera. So you can pour the oil over his head and let that oil go over him. And then again, we have our Hebrew words. We have mashak for anoint. We have shemen, mishkat kodesh, set apart anointing oil. And then we have Aharon, Aaron. And that's their page. And that's it.
All right, another fantastic job by Rabbi and Julie and Selena. Awesome stuff. Fantastic. So hopefully all of you now have a much better understanding about the things that were covered tonight, the garments and the altar, etc. We're going to talk a little bit more about it when it's my turn here after the announcements. But I think it was a fantastic job. And also I think for all of you with children, you have to understand this is all part of the Parsha Pearls program. Okay, it's a free program, and I'm probably thinking, wow, if you had to pay for this program, it's free. Okay, and when Grayson comes up and does the announcements, I'll tell you how you can find all that on the website. Okay, so with that, we're going to go ahead and read the closing blessing for after the Torah readings. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam natah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Yahweh noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us the Torah of truth, has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen. Amen. All right, we're going to go ahead and bring up Grayson Gardner to lead us through the announcements, and then I will be back up here for the study.
Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to start off by welcoming our guests. As children of Avraham, we'd like to exemplify his world-renowned trait of hospitality. And for our guests, while we will be doing our best to treat you as guests, we would appreciate it if you could behave as guests. So even if we're doing something you disagree with or you think we're wrong, we would appreciate it if you could conduct yourselves in a Yeshua-like manner. And before I get into all that we offer as a ministry, I want to make it clear that everything that MTOI does is 100% free and there to be a blessing to those who will find it. With that being said, we do 2 live streams every week. The first being our Shabbat service, which is every Saturday here, and the service goes live at 1:15 with the sounding of the shofar, and the service typically lasts for a little bit over 4 hours, going till around 5:30. The second live stream that we do is our Torah study, which is taking place right now. This service starts at 7:30 p.m. following the Erev Shabbat meal that we do here locally at 6. And so this service starts for the next couple of weeks with an amazing lesson by our very own Rabbi Julie and Selena, and then the announcements, and then our rabbi will come out and he'll go over the connections that he has for the chapter, as well as open the floor up for any questions or comments on things that were not covered. And so if you want to follow along with us as we go through our Parsha schedule, we do have it available on our website. You can find this at MTOI.org, and you can find it under the Media tab. There you will find that we have the Torah, half Torah, as well as the Brit on a cycle. And so it is on a 4-year cycle. Our Brit, and so each year we will be reading one of the Gospels and then the rest of the Brit. And so that is available on our website for those who want to follow along with us. And so while we have our rabbi to make sure that we're understanding the Torah portion at our level, we have our very own MTOI Parsha Pearls program to make sure that our children are able to understand the word at their level in a way that is fun and engaging for them. And so this does have its very own website. You can find this at ymtoi.org. And it is an incredibly robust program that is broken up into 2 different age groups. We have our Gem Seekers, Katan Aleph, which is ages 5 through 8, as well as our Pearl Seekers, or Katan Bet, which is ages 9 through 99 plus. And if you were in here earlier, you heard that our rabbi said that he would recommend this as a resource to everybody, regardless of how many years you've been in Torah, simply because of the immense amount of value that are in each of these programs. And so each program includes child-friendly stories and lessons, lesson questions, Hebrew word studies, memory verses, word searches, crossword puzzles, mazes, crafts, notebook pages, coloring pages, songs, and snacks that are all related to that week's Torah portion. And so all of these things that are in these are made by us, for us, and this is led by our very own Rabbi Julie and her amazing team. And so these programs are posted on Sunday, so they'll be available for you to use throughout your week, as well as on Shabbat, as it is guaranteed to take up a fairly large amount of your child's time. And it is the program that we use at our Shabbat school here locally. And I have the pleasure of being able to announce that there is a special Purim edition this Sunday that will be coming out. And this will include brand new felt puppet and stick puppet crafts of the king, Esther, Mordecai, and Haman. Boo! Okay, I was hoping some people would catch on to that. And so that is something to look forward to this Sunday, and you can find all of this at ymtoi.org. If you are somebody who enjoys listening to the word read, we do have audio scripture readings available on our website. And this is done by our very own Shira Wendling. Shira's done an amazing job reading from Genesis to Revelation in her own narrative style, and for the first 5 books, she even broke it up by Torah portion. So if you want to listen to next week's Parsha in advance, you can go to mtoi.org, and it'll be under the Media tab, and then you'll be able to find it and listen to it from there. We do upload on YouTube every weekday, so Monday through Friday. Starting with Monday, we have our first look, and this is sort of our movie preview for the full teaching that will be posted later in the week. And so this is powerful sound bites that are taken out and then put together to really just get you into the right mindset to receive the full teaching that will be posted later in the week. On Tuesday, we have our MTOI shorts. And so these are 10 1-minute or less videos, which are just powerful sound bites that we take out. And they really just stand alone well on their own. And if you find yourself with a few minutes left in your day, this is an incredible resource, as it'll be able to, in just a minute, be able to help get you into that vertically focused mindset in just a fraction of the time that it would take for you to watch a full teaching. And so there are 10 of these that are posted on our YouTube, as well as additional ones that are posted in our app, and those would be under the Rabbi Trails. On Wednesday, we have our full teaching, which we are currently going over sin. And good job on everybody for not clapping for sin, because that is something that we have had an issue about. And so I'm proud of all of us, and hopefully we can continue not cheering that on moving forward. And so following each teaching, we do have our afterburns. And so this is about an hour-long question and answer time with our rabbi to really just make sure that we've understood the message that he was trying to teach us. And so people come up and ask questions and give comments, and then our rabbi will further explain upon the things that people were confused about, and it ends up being almost a mini teaching of its own. And so every Thursday Afterburn is connected to that Wednesday's full teaching. On Friday, we have our In Focuses, and so these are shorter 5, 6 to 10 minute long videos where our rabbi really covers the subject in just that amount of time, and so we pull it out and we make it a video of its own. And if, while you're watching this, you want to get the full context from the full teaching that it's from, there will be a link on the side that you can click on if you are interested. Aside from YouTube, we do post on other social media platforms, including Facebook and Instagram. The Facebook is MTOI Worldwide, with the Instagram being slightly different, as it is MTOI_worldwide. And while you're following those, you might as well turn the notifications on, so that way you can stay up to date with what we have going on here. The best way to stay up to date with what we have going on here is using our very own MTOI app, in which we currently have 2,134 downloads. So that's very exciting, on our way to the big 5K. And so while you are taking advantage and downloading this app, one of the best features is the fact that our leadership is able to communicate to everybody who has the app through it and be able to send messages out. And so in order to make sure that you do not miss any of those important messages, you are going to want to make sure that you have your notifications on. And in order to do this, you are going to go to the 3 bars on the upper left, go to Settings, Notifications, and then you're going to want to make sure that your general is on green. If your general is green, then your notifications are on, and you should be good to go. An additional program that we do here as a ministry is our Torah Teens on Zoom. And this takes place every Thursday at 1 p.m. EST with our very own Rabbi Tom Mitchell. Rabbi Tom does an amazing job with this class and really creates an environment where the teens feel they can not only open up with each other as well as the Word, but also work on having a proper relationship with a member in the vertical structure and what that looks like. And I've heard absolutely nothing but positive feedback, and all of the teenagers have just said that it's just an incredible time and that they thoroughly enjoy it. But this is a class that is for teenagers. So if you're below 13, you should not be in the room. And if you're above 19, you should not be in the room. If you're a parent and you're concerned about what your child might be learning, that's understandable. Just make sure that you are off camera, as Zoom is a video chat format. And when other adults are in the room, the teens are going to be more likely to be self-conscious about their questions or what they were going to say, and be more inclined to edit, and that is something that we want to avoid as much as possible. So just make sure you are off camera. And then once you feel comfortable with what your child is learning, feel free to step out of the room so that way they can experience the class for themselves without you there. And so again, this is every Thursday at 1 p.m. And if you want to participate, you simply need to send an email to torahtime@mtoi.org, and then an auto response link will be sent to you, and you'll be able to join the class from there. And it is the same link for all of the classes. As an international ministry, in an effort to serve people around the world while at Shabbat where they are, our rabbi has broken up the world into different zones, with each zone having about a 2-hour-long question and answer time with our rabbi each month. And so the next one that we have coming up will be on March 4th, and this will be the Zone 1 live stream Shabbat Q&A, and this will be taking place during our regular service time. And for those who are calendar impaired, that is tomorrow. And so if you live in in any of these areas or time zones close to them of United States, Canada, Mexico, South America, Central America, and the other islands in those time zones, then this is your chance to ask questions, and the entire 2 hours will be devoted to answering the questions coming from the live stream. And so then for next month, it will be for the local Zone 1, which are the people who are able to attend here locally. Following this, on March 11th, we have our Zone 2 Shabbat Q&A, which will be taking place at 10 a.m. EST before our regular service time. And this meeting takes place on Zoom. And so if you want to participate, you are going to want to send an email to zoom@mtoi.org. And then an auto response link will be sent back to you, and then you'll be able to join the class from there. So this is Zone 2, so the priority for the people in terms of asking the questions will be from United Kingdom, Europe, Africa, and then additional countries that are in that general time zone. And so those are the people who have the priority in terms of asking the questions, but everybody is welcome to come and listen to the answers, and that is something that I would highly recommend, because the answers that are given, they only happen in these meetings, and so if you're not there, it's not recorded, you won't have your chance to listen to it again, and so if you miss it, you just miss it, and as somebody who goes quite often, I can assure you, you do not want to miss it. And so I would just highly encourage everybody to send an email to zoom@mtoi.org and take advantage of this blessing that is waiting for you. And so this is our Zone 2, which is every second Saturday of the month, and this will be at 10 a.m. EST on March 11th. The meeting we have coming up after this is on March 17th, and this will be Zone 3 Shabbat Q&A, which will be taking place 10 p.m. EST, following the Torah study that we do here locally. And so this is Zone 3, so it is every third Friday of the month. And the priority for the questions will be from Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Philippines, Malaysia, India, China, and Fiji, I believe, are some additional countries that we have people participating from. And again, if you want to participate and join this meeting, you simply need to email zoom@mtoi.org, and then the link will be sent back to you, and you will be able to join the class from there. If you're somebody and you're not comfortable to ask questions in a zone meeting or by calling the offices, we do have a Contact Us page available on our website, as well as an email, questions@mtoi.org, that you can send your questions to. If you have something that is an urgency, which means in the next 1 to 2 days, the information will no longer be of use to you, I would highly recommend calling the offices, as that is the best way to get in touch with leadership in a timely manner. Some important dates that we have coming up are on March 7th, we have Purim. And so we will be celebrating that here at 6 p.m. with a meal, followed by a play and celebration. And this will not be streamed, but will be thoroughly enjoyed by everybody who is attending here locally. Following Purim, we have on March 12th a very busy day, as we've got a lot of things happening, starting with the leadership meeting. And this is a date that we should all be paying attention to, as we should be praying for our leaders. These are men that are taking hours out of the day from all around the world, gathering together with the sole intention of working together as effectively as they can to serve the body and the Father. And so we should be praying for our leaders, as they are doing the best they can to serve the Father and us. Additionally, on that day, there is the Ladies' Feast Craft Prep Party, and this will be taking place at 10 a.m. And there should be no children there at the party, so that way our ladies can stay focused on all the fun they'll be having, as well as the crafts that they will be cutting. And lastly, for March 12th, it is also daylight savings time change. And so we are going to want to make sure that we are moving our clocks ahead 1 hour. On March 23rd, we will be having our Rosh Hodesh for the month of Aviv. And so this will be taking place at 7 p.m. There will not be a meal, but feel free to bring desserts, and they will be enjoyed after services. Next up, we have Pesach coming. And so we will be celebrating that here locally, here in Cleveland, Tennessee, from April 5th to the 13th. We currently have 337 people registered. And the last day to register is March 10th, so that would be this next Friday. So if you are planning on coming and you know that you're coming, make sure that you get your registration in, so that way our leadership can get everything done in terms of planning, getting the right chair set out, getting the right meals prepped. It is very important that we get our registration in a timely manner to make this as easy as a process for them as it can be. And there has been a schedule change. And so if you had the old schedule printed out, you are going to want to go and make sure you get a new one, as the free day and family day has been switched. So the family day will be on that Sunday. And so we figured that there would be a bunch of people who would be wanting to come for just that weekend. And so in order to make sure that they got the most bang for their buck, we figured that we might as well have our Family Day as an opportunity for them to participate in that, and so that has been switched to that Sunday. And so I believe that is all for the announcements. Please help me in welcoming up Rabbi Steve.
Because all of you who know me know that I want you to get your best bang for your buck. I don't know with that. All right. Great job, Grayson. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so if you have a schedule, just know that those 2 days got flipped. Okay, so free day and family day simply got reversed, the Sunday into Monday. It was also brought to my attention that that Sunday is Easter Sunday. And so that means almost everything will be closed anyway. So to make that free day didn't really make sense, because then people want to go out and do stuff and everything's closed. So for all reasons, it makes sense then to switch it. So we'll have family day, and we'll go to do the mikveh and the picnic and all the things that we do on family day. Also, for all you zone 2 and zone 3ers, we'll be make that change, because we're going to be doing zone 2 and zone 3 both on that day. When we start announcing next month zone 2 and zone 3, I'm going to do them both on that family day, on that Sunday, okay? Which in zone 3 will be Monday. So just like we did last week, we'll do one at 10 in the morning and one at 10 at night, and in the middle we'll go and do the picnic and mikveh and all those kind of good things. So, because why should I have other than a crazy busy day? All right, so anyway. All right, so it seems like a lot of you woke up to get your registrations in. I think we jumped about 50 plus since the last time we had the announcement, so that's pretty good. Usually we do have over 400, so I expect there's about 60 or 70 of you that are waiting to the last second. Shame on you. All right, I don't know why that is. All right, and all of you that need to finish your registrations or get in funds or whatever you need to do, let's get that in by Friday, please. All right, so a couple other things to add real quickly here. So the next Level Up class is on Sunday. This Sunday, I was going to say tomorrow, but I will say that tomorrow. This Sunday. All right. And so let's be ready for that. We are going to be talking about relationships and emotions. All right, so we got that planned for this class. And I think the only other thing I want to remind everyone is, okay, so the people in the Purim play, okay, it's Purim, not Purim, okay, in the Purim play. If you're going to be here for the Level Up class and then going right into the Purim play, you know, it's a long enough day. We'll have a couple hours with the class, and then afterwards, I know we do sometimes provide some snacks. You're also welcome to bring other things. People might be expecting stuff. We're mostly putting out extra stuff that we've been trying to kind of unload since the feast that we have, like chips and things. But if you want to bring snacks or anything, or maybe a little sandwich, something, because we're going to be staying then and doing a good 2 hours of rehearsals to get the play, you know, practiced up. So that will be on Sunday after the Level Up class from 5 to 7. Okay, if you're in the play, you guys know who you are, that will be on Sunday. All right, so that's going to cover it for that. Now, let's talk about this week's Torah portion. Okay, this week's Torah portion is Tetzaveh, which means shall command. Let's begin in chapter 27. And I have to say, it's a little bit more, you know, it's challenging but exciting at the same time to be doing this after knowing that the presentation that was already made. So this actually in some ways makes what I'm doing a lot easier, because you can kind of remember and picture these things. All right, so in chapter 27, and beginning of verse 20, okay, so you have, and you shall command the children of Israel to bring you clear oil of pressed olives for the light to cause a lamp to burn continually. Okay, this is, in the Hebrew, this is the Ner Tamid. Okay, the Ner Tamid. So when you hear in paganism or in comic books the idea of the eternal flame, this is it. It was the flame that was to be kept burning all the time. Okay, the Ner Tamid. And so that's where that came. It's made of clear oil of pressed olives. It's interesting how all the things that Yahweh wants us to do gets beaten, pressed, burned, to be made into whatever it needs to be made into. Squeezed, So if you're feeling any of those feelings, you're in good company, okay? You're in good company feeling that way. All right, so in verse 21, so this light, this lamp, was to be tended by the Kohanim, the high priests, okay? They would attend this lamp or this light. And so, remember, if we are looking at ourselves as future kingdom of priests, and if we're looking at ourselves, 1 Corinthians 6:19, that you are the dwelling place, you need to tend that light. Okay, that light, not in the temple, the light in this temple. Okay, because you're the Kohen of this temple, your temple. Okay, and so you need to make sure everything's functioning properly and being handled right, just like the high priest would. So you have to tend to that light. Because you don't want to be like the parable of the virgins in Matthew 25, where they weren't keeping an eye on their oil and having it ready and their lamps trimmed and all that kind of stuff. Okay? And so I'm not going to go read that whole parable for you, but you guys can go read that. It's verses 1 through 13 in Matthew 25. And so you can see the sort of a connection. So when you learn something in one place, let's do this in reverse. Let's say you're reading something in the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament. If you don't know the references that it's pointing at, you lose a lot of the value. You miss a lot of things. You don't have the context. So certain things should trigger certain other things. You start talking about oil, you should go back and think about what's going on with oil in the Old Testament. You think about things happening with dirt or ground and tending the garden, that kind of, well then, like the parable of the sower of the seed. So you kind of, when you're reading stuff in one, it should be, remember, it's built on and based on the old. And everybody was supposed to understand that all the references in the new were referring back to the old. It's incredible, and you may not know this, how much of the new is actually references to the old. Quotes, alluding to things that were in there, clarifying things, adding things, in, the context of things, how it then goes from that context to the new context. By the way, when it went from old context to new context, it's always additional, not subtractional. Let that be a very important clarity for all of you out there that are in the mainstream world of Christianity. When you move from the Old Testament to the New Testament, things get added in terms of the fullness of understanding. We're not adding to or taking away, like literally, but fullness of understanding is deepening. You should have a deepening of that, as opposed to subtracting or taking away or doing away. Look, Yeshua's first public message, really, in it, he said, of old where it says, don't murder? Well, I'm going to give you a heavier duty, real true understanding of what that's all about. You shouldn't even be hating each other and angry to want to kill each other. I know you think it's great that you didn't kill each other, but I'd like you to get to the place where you don't even want to. Oh, where it says of old not to commit adultery? Well, I think you need to get to a place where it's not even a thought in your head. So he's deepening, he's not adding anything, he's deepening the understanding. I call it the fullness of the intention, okay? The intent of the law, the spirit of it, is the fullness of how it's intended. And so you have that going on. All right, then we get to chapter 28. And see, we got out of a chapter so quick, it's only 2 verses. Usually it takes me an hour to get to the next chapter. All right, chapter 28, and we'll look at verse 3. Okay, and it says, and you speak to all the wise of heart, whom I fill with the spirit of wisdom, and they shall make the garments of Aharon to set him apart, for him to serve as priest to me. Okay, so this is when people ask about, well, how do I know what my gift is? Well, first of all, he's not gifting everybody of the 2 million people that were there. He's picking out key people to do key things. And then he gives them the wisdom or the talent or the gifting to be able to perform that particular duty. Okay? Okay, he did that with me with teaching. He did that with my daughter with music. He did that with my wife with the children's program. Now, it wasn't like a moment where all of a sudden, oh, and she got the spirit of, it's just what he gave her. He built, these are people that had this incredible gift to make the things that needed to be made for the garments. They had the wisdom so that they could make the garments of Aharon. Okay, the talent, the gift. So I don't want you to get all wrapped up in, well, like some spiritual thing had just happened. He gave them that from birth. Okay? So he says, speak to all the wise of heart in whom I filled. In other words, they were born with this stuff. So by the time that they're now adults, they've got this gift and talent to be usable. Okay? I didn't know I'd be doing this as a career at any point, when I was much younger. But he gave me the abilities that I would need to do this so that when I got to this, I could utilize them. Okay? So I don't want you to think this was just people just walking around going, oh my gosh, I know how to make clothes now. I mean, it just wasn't that. Whoa, wait, I felt something. Like a shock or electricity. It wasn't that. These are people that they were already the ones making garments and having these gifts and talents, okay? Elder, I had to do that to you. I'm sorry. All right, so he's already over there going, oh my goodness. All right. Oh, you know what I didn't mention during the announcements? I should have mentioned it now during the announcements. We have a very special teaching. Did he mention that during the announcements? We have a special teaching that was added, a special message. You can find it on YouTube, on our app. Okay, it's a special message on unity and revival and what the reality is. It's already had over 2,000 views and just the data has been posted. And some interesting comments, mostly people liking what they got to see there. And so the thing I did the other day where I just kind of spontaneously went out there, it's about 12 minutes long. It's really powerful. And for all those who watch it, just remember if the shoe fits, then, Okay, so if you watch it again, you'll get why I said that. All right. Because when I listened to it this morning, I said, oh, yeah, I did say that, didn't I? Sometimes I crack myself up. Okay. And I also wonder, as Elder does, how I'm not killed yet. Okay, so. All right. Let's get back to the Torah portion. Okay, so when you see something like the spirit of wisdom, so the spirit of wisdom simply means I gave them the talent, the gift. So this is something that will come naturally to them. All right? Okay, I can teach anybody how to put together structurally a teaching. Doesn't mean they're going to be able to come up with a gift and actually deliver with a gift the teaching. I could teach, well, I can't, but I mean, there are people out there that can teach anybody to play the piano. But it doesn't mean you have the gift to make the music by playing the piano. Okay? And so these are people that were born with or instilled in them the gift or wisdom of that particular thing. Okay. Now in verse 4 and also in verse 40, it says the same thing more or less. It says that, it just mentions that as part of the garments was a turban. That's kind of the point I want to bring out, is this idea of a turban. Now, this is not a kippah or a yarmulke, all right? The little thing that you see like the Jewish people wear on the top of the head, maybe the Yemenite ones are a little bigger. This literally looked like you might picture in the Arab world today as a turban. Okay, it wrapped around, it was circular and it wrapped around and it covered their head. It was fairly large that way. So I want you to picture more of a turban that was made, and they wore this when they were doing the job. They didn't wear this all the time, but this is when they were doing their work. Okay? So I know that some people think like, oh, that's where the kippah comes from. No, kippah comes from Talmud with the understanding that it was something to remind you that something is higher than you. So it was a different sort of trigger. Just like the seat are a trigger to remember to keep the commandments, okay? The kippah was a reminder that something's higher than you. All right, but this is not the turban that we're talking about with the priesthood. Okay, so we're clear on that. So in this whole section here, it's talking about the garments, right? It's listing the garments. It says in verse 4, the breastplate, the shoulder garment, the robe, embroidered long shirt, turban, girdle, and apparently no swimming trunks are included. I saw that, Rebbetzin. That was funny. Okay, so I was nervous when you kind of pulled his robe off. I was not nervous. Okay. All right. So, but what you guys, if you are reading this, well, let's reverse it. What would you be reading in the New Testament that should trigger this? The armor of Elohim, Ephesians 6, okay? So, because most people who have done renderings about Ephesians 6 draw a Roman soldier, okay? So they make a breastplate and a sword and everything like a Roman soldier. When really it's kind of referring back to this, okay? And so when we talk about the armor, I think he's describing more the high priest garments. Now, in verse 12, we're still in chapter 28, it says here that you shall put on the 2 stones on the shoulder pieces of the shoulder garment as stones of remembrance for the sons of Israel, and Aaron shall bear the names before Yahweh on his 2 shoulders for remembrance. You know, maybe this is where the original idea of carrying a weight on your shoulders or carrying the weight of the world or other people on your shoulders. I'm just, because here he was supposed to bear the weight of the responsibility for all of the children of Israel, the 12 tribes, on his shoulders. The names were there. Now, this is also mentioned again in verse 29, the idea of the names. In verse 29, it says, and Aaron shall bear the names of the sons of Israel on the breastplate of the right ruling over his heart when he goes into the set-apart place for remembrance. So both places mention remembrance. One's on the shoulders, one's on the breastplate, and it's the names of the children of Israel. It says, bear the names. What does it mean to bear the names? Bear the reputation. You're carrying the reputation of Israel on your shoulders and on your breastplate. Okay, and so this is bearing the names or reputation. It's also talking about the breastplate, which has to do with judgment and righteousness. Okay? And so just to understand, the key word there, he says, and you are to remember that you're here for them. You are this centerpiece between me and them. That's what he wanted them to understand. You are standing between the Almighty and the nation of Israel. Okay, so that's a high responsibility. And I think, by the way, that today, leadership basically has that same responsibility to some degree. You are bearing the names in both directions, by the way. The high priest had to realize he also bore the name of Yahweh and had to represent him correctly. So you are going to go before Yahweh, you're representing the people. When you go before the people, you're representing Yahweh. That's a lot of responsibility. Okay? So in verse 15, we go back a little bit. It says, and you shall make a breastplate of right ruling, or judgment, the word there translates, a work of skilled workmanship. So this breastplate of judgment, of righteousness. Okay? So, give me 1 second. So when we're looking at verse 14 of chapter 6 of Ephesians, it says, and put on the breastplate of righteousness. Oh, see, it does relate. Like kind of literally. Okay? And so just understand that that's there. But this righteousness is also from the point of view of the high priest of judgment, because the Hebrew under there has a mishpat, sort of mishpatim sort of word, okay? So it's there. So it has a lot to do with judgment. All right, so you got the breastplate of judgment. But as you're doing judgment, the breastplate has the 12 tribes on it, so you're supposed to remember you're there for their benefit, for their sake. So don't be too harsh on your judgment. Okay, but also don't be too loose on your judgment. It's a rough place to be. Okay, in the middle of all that. Okay, then we get verse 27. It says, and you shall make 2 rings of gold and put them on the 2 shoulder pieces, underneath the shoulder garment, on the front of it, close to the seam, above the embroidered. Don't tell me details don't matter. Okay, I read all that because in my notes it simply says details matter. He didn't just say, look, make 2 rings of gold and put them on the 2 pieces on the shoulder. He says, I want them this place, near the seam, on this. I mean, it was very, very clear instructions, very detailed, very specific. You'll start to see that again. Well, not start. You'll continue to see that when we do the offerings, exactly how he wants them done and how much of each thing to use. I mean, he gives you the recipe exactly how he wants it. All right? So when you read these verses, I'm trying to show you the things you should be getting out of it. Okay, you should be getting when you read that, 2 rings of gold, put them on the 2 shoulder pieces, underneath the shoulder garment, on the front of it, close to the seam, above the embroidered band of the shoulder garment, and then bind the breastplate. That's details matter. I mean, he could have told them, look, just make me garments and make them white or this or that. Okay? No, he wanted this to be exactly a certain way. But why does he want it a certain way? Does it really matter? Probably not. But it matters because he wants you to understand that details to him matter. Do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, did it really matter what the garment looked like? Probably not. It only matters because that's the way he wanted it, and he wanted you to know that I want it exactly the way I want it, which is what it said in the beginning in Exodus 25:9 when we did this last week. It said, I want you to follow the pattern exactly the way I've given it to you. You don't get to creatively alter this. Which, by the way, take that to heart, all of you people wearing rainbow-colored tzitzit. Okay? You don't have that freedom. Well, you don't get mad at me. Well, it doesn't say what to do with the other strings. Yes, it does. It tells you not to do anything with the other strings. It takes you to take one of them and make it blue. And not just any blue, Techelet blue. So just because it's silent doesn't mean it's not saying anything. It's assuming you do nothing with the rest of it. Okay? And so they would have been the whitest wool they could find with one blue strand. And that would have been in the fringe of the garment. So you don't have the license to creatively do what you want. Details matter, and they're his details. All right, now, then we get back to verse 29, where it was talking about that Aaron would bear the names of the sons. And then in verse 30 it says, and into the breastplate of right ruling you shall put the Urim and the Thummim, and they shall be on the heart of Aaron when he goes in before Yahweh. And Aaron shall bear the right ruling of the children of Israel on his heart before Yahweh continually. This is the leadership heart, the continual awareness of his role regarding the people. Look, you can't do what I do, Elder does, Rabbi Tom does, without knowing your role before Yahweh for the people. Okay? You have to have that continually there. Some of you think, well, Rabbi, you're just mean sometimes. No, I know my role. Some of you don't understand. The reason you're upset is because you've needed and never had somebody to talk the straight truth to your face. That's just the reality. We've become softer and softer in this world as adults, and all the people around us are soft. And then somebody comes in front of you that's strong, and it scares you, and it hurts because you don't know what to do with it, because you're used to being coddled. Okay? The world has never been so coddled, codependent, and just enabling and entitling as it is today. We are so spoiled. And then so somebody gets in your face and says, no, you need to go do this or that, or this needs to stop, or whatever it is. Then you get all mad. But you have to understand, I'm doing that knowing my role. My role, by the way, is not to please you. My role is to please him. And my role to please him means I need to do everything I can to help you understand how to please him. I also want you to become the type of person you'd want to spend forever with instead of this whiny, complainy, depressed thing that you are. Okay? I'm not judging you. You need to fix it. And if you think that that's going to go on in the forever, you know that that's not going to happen. And then don't get all depressed now thinking you can't get there. Of course you can get there. He wouldn't pick you if you couldn't get there. But he's asking you to become something you're not. And you know that because he wants you to transform from what you are into what he is, right? Isn't that the basic understanding of all this, that we have to transform into him? Which means that you're no longer going to be the you are now. So get excited about that. Don't wallow in the old you, the one that was supposed to be buried. Well, I just want to die. Good. Kill the old you and live to be him. Don't kill you. Bury the old you. Let that die, that flesh, that depressed, whiny, insecure, anxiety-riddled, selfish, angry, bitter, judging, all the negative stupidity. Kill that. Because you're not getting into the kingdom as you are. He called you as you are with the calling to become him. And don't fall into that nonsense the church taught you that somehow he's going to wave his hand at you and next thing you know, you're him. You have to become him by choice, with effort. And he called me to be the coach, drill sergeant, something to go, come on, we can do this, let's go, go, go. Unrelenting. Because he did say that he needed to do this continually. He says, for remembrance before Yahweh continually, which means he was going to be before Yahweh a lot for the people, continually. All right? But this is what the leadership heart is supposed to be. Then we have, Rebbetzin didn't cover this, but she wanted to know, she wasn't sure if I was going to cover it. So in 33 to 35, it talks about the bells. Okay? So it says, and in the hem you shall put pomegranates and blue and purple and scarlet material, and also in the hems bells of gold between them and all around, and a golden bell of a pomegranate, and a golden bell and a pomegranate. That's how the hem would have gone. Okay? It shall be upon Aaron to attend in, and its sound shall be heard when he goes into the set-apart place before Yahweh, and when he comes out, so that he does not die. Okay. It's also so that you would know, maybe rabbis and teachers should wear them so you guys know we're coming. Be like warn somebody before you just show up. Ding, 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 ding. All right, so what is this talking about? Look, if Aaron went into the set-apart place, the Holy of Holies, and it didn't go well, he might not come out. So they could hear the bell. Of course, if all of a sudden they might have heard a thud and no more bell, they might know something went wrong. Okay? And so, literally that's what it says, so that he would wear this, so that when he goes into the Holy of Holies, that they would hear this as he goes in and when he comes out, so that he does not die. Because if something went wrong, now there's also, it doesn't say it here, this idea that they used to have a rope around him, basically. So they could pull him out because nobody wanted to go in. So that way he would be out and they could try to keep him from being dead, whatever. But, okay, so but at least it tells you about the bells. Okay? 28:36, and you shall make a plate of clean gold and engrave on it like the engraving of the signet. Set apartness to Yahweh. This also should trigger a reference in Zechariah 14 and in verse 20. Where it says, in that day, set apart to Yahweh shall be engraved on the bells of the horses and on the pots of the house of Yahweh, shall be like the bowls before the altar. So this idea of set apart to Yahweh shall be engraved. Okay? So this is talking about end time stuff in Zechariah 14, and here it's first being instructed in Exodus 28. Okay? All right, then we get to chapter 29. Cruising right along here. And verse 4. Then you shall bring Aharon and his sons to the door of the tent of meeting and wash them with water. You shall take the garments and shall put them on Aaron, the long shirt and the robe and shoulder garment, etc. And then you're going to put the turban on his head, and you shall put the set-apart sign of dedication on the turban, etc. Okay, so the key point here, who's doing this? Moshe is doing this to Aaron and his sons. So who is the current official anointed appointed? Moshe. Aaron wasn't yet. He's about to get anointed and appointed. So the anointed appointed anoints, washes, and dresses the other anointed appointeds. Which also shows you the hierarchy that the Melchizedekian is higher than the Levitical. Because in my opinion, it doesn't say it anywhere in here, so don't get mad at me. Moshe was walking in the Melchizedekian function. And Aaron was the high priest in the Levitical function. And the higher is the Melchizedekian, as we see in Hebrews, as Yeshua is the high priest sitting at the right hand in the Melchizedekian order. Okay? And the Melchizedekian order, as we go back to Abram and Melchizedek meeting, was the priest of the Most High, who did a lot more than just temple service and judgment, which is really what the Levitical priesthood did, was they did judgment and they did temple service. Which is not a minimal thing. It took they had a very busy life, okay, doing those things. But the Melchizedekian was more the instructional, guiding, I mean, who taught the Torah when you read this? Aaron or Moses? Moses. Now, you'd go to the priest for things for judgment. I have this thing on my skin. I don't know what to do with it. I got this stuff on my clothing. I have this thing going on in my house. The priest would be there for that. I don't know what to do with this offering. I made a mistake. I did this thing. What do I do? Well, you have to do this offering and that offering. All right? So they were there for that kind of guidance. But all of the life instruction, that came from the Melchizedekian side. The ones that got the anointing from Moses onto the 70. Okay? So, for all of you out there that think you want to be this, that, or the other thing, well, you're supposed to be anointed by an already anointed person. Okay? Okay? Now, there are going to be moments where there wasn't anybody that could have done that. Nobody was there to anoint Moses. Yahweh anointed Moses. Okay? And so, because some of you are thinking, well, what about you, Rabbi? Well, there wasn't anybody to do that for me. But if you're in this ministry, there is somebody to do that. And if we haven't done that, that's because we haven't been inspired that that's what needs to be done. Moses was inspired as to who to do what with, okay? And instructed what to do. He was told to take Aaron and his sons. Aaron and his sons didn't come up and say, hey, pick us. We want to do this. Because a lot of you want to come up to ministries and go, hey, I think I can do this. How do I get to be a rabbi? Well, I want to do that. Listen, you do what you're doing, and we'll see what we notice, and we see if there's an anointing there. Okay? We got to see what you're filled with. You could be filled with the annoying, and that could be worse. All right? By the way, that's sort of a rampant disease in the body. You guys, filled with the annoying. And most of you have phones, and you call here for counsel and stuff, so. All right, I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud? Elder's like, our ministry's over. He's just, Oh, my goodness. No filter whatsoever. All right, now. All right. You know what's really funny is that I watch other people teach. I know it's terrible because I'm trying to figure out what everybody's doing so I can warn you about stuff or let you know. And it's funny watching some of these teachers out there say the most innocuous things as if they just said something like shocking. And I'm like, listen to what I say sometimes. You don't have anything to worry about. They're like, is that okay? Did I scare everybody? Anyway. Chapter 29 and verse 9. Okay, and it says, and shall gird them with girdles, Aaron and his sons, and put the turbans on them, and the priesthood shall be theirs for an everlasting law, so you shall ordain Aaron and his sons. Okay, so the Kohanim is for Aaron and his sons forever. But you're saying, but there's no Kohanim right now. Well, there's no temple. And if you know in Ezekiel, guess who's going to be basically serving and doing all the stuff in that temple? The Kohanim. So that third temple is still going to be led by, served by, and run by the Levites. And the sons of Aaron will be doing their jobs in that third temple. Okay? Now, I know there's teachings out there against this whole Melchizedekian idea because people maybe are teaching it stupidly and wrong. All right? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Yes, I did. Look, nowhere ever does it say anywhere, nor have I ever said that the Melchizedekian replaces the Levitical during the service of the temple. Two totally different ministries with different purposes. Okay? Before there was a temple, there was only the one. When there was a temple, there were both. And those both ran all the way until there was no more temple. And then, with the destruction of the temple, we're back just to the Melchizedekian, which is what the author of Hebrews is trying to explain. Okay? Because I know there's people out there that kind of really strongly get upset about this whole idea. Because I understand, because they're very protective of understanding the temple and the Levites and that kind of stuff, okay? And I'm with that. I get that. But I want you to know that, if you're watching, whoever these people are, is that the Melchizedekian priesthood is separate, different, and neither of the two shall trade places, okay? I mean, they have their roles. And so when there's another temple, it will still be the Levites, okay? The Melchizedekians are never going to be doing temple service. They were never supposed to. Yeshua, by the way, was not Levite, was not supposed to do temple service. That's kind of the whole point in the book of Hebrews. However, he is a high priest of all things not temple related, okay? which is everything else. All right. Because he wouldn't leave us without a priesthood. Because remember, we had a priesthood all the way back to Abraham, and before that too, but we don't read about it. But there was always somebody in that role. Probably was Adam to start with. Okay, then you see it going down. We probably had Enoch as then another one. Then it gets to Noah. And then from Noah goes to Shem and Eber, etc. And it goes to Abraham and then Isaac and Jacob. As we see these things passed down. Okay? They become part of that order. Now, the high priest, even when you have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, was this one who had the role that was called Melchizedek, which was probably Shem at the time. Okay? All the Jewish community believes it was Shem. I believe that that's a likely conclusion that makes sense also. And so, but I think that then they were training Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in that order so that they would then train and teach and instruct their people, okay, who they were responsible for. So the Kohanim is forever, which means that when there's a temple, they will be doing the work. Okay, now, verse 19 through 21. So we have this thing with the putting of blood on the right ear, the thumb, and the toe. Okay? And you probably read that the first time going, that sounds really weird. Because that's how I reacted the first time I read it. And that's, okay, the right ear, the right thumb, and the big toe on the right foot. Why? What's the deal? Okay? And so my best guess is if you look at what they represent. So what does the ear represent? Hearing. Okay? What's the thumb part of? The hands, which is doing. What's the toe part of? The foot, which means it has to do with walking. So in their being ordained and the blood being put on them, he's saying, I want you to hear, do, and walk. Okay? So that would be my best guess on that. I mean, there's no verses that really explain it, but that's my guess. All right. Verse 27 and 28. And from the ram of ordination you shall set apart the breast of the wave offering which is waved, and the thigh of the contribution which is raised, of that which is for Aaron and that which is for his sons. And it shall be from the children of Israel for Aaron and his sons by a law forever, for it is a contribution. And it is a contribution from the children of Israel, from their peace offerings, their contribution to Yahweh. Now, this goes back to a teaching that I allude to a lot that I've never done in many, many years, but it's not really that big a deal. I can explain it in 5 minutes. It was called How Long is Forever? Because it says the law forever. Are the Israelite children still giving the Levites the thigh and the breast of this particular offering? No. Why? Because all laws have parameter links to them. Jurisdictionally, they have to be done in a certain place often, or during a certain event, or certain other things have to be in place for a law to be in force, okay? So what's the missing parameter here? The temple. So it simply says that when there's a temple and there's offerings, this goes to them forever, okay? So when we see things like the word forever, just understand forever is for as long as the parameters surrounding it are all in place. That's why we have things like, as the sun and the moon are seen in the heavens, so is Israel my people. All right, so you look outside, you go, they're still there. You see what I'm saying? So we have parameters that we know, all right? And so as long as they exist, then we know that that is still in function, all right? So it's not, forever isn't always forever. You know, it says the smoke from Sodom and Gomorrah went up forever. Is it still going? No, in other words, it went and it was not to be put out by anybody. It was going to burn until it was done. There was no putting it out. So just understand that these things have, because some people say, what's the matter? Don't you understand forever? Well, some things literally are forever because the parameters around them are always going to exist. We are to keep the Sabbath day because the Sabbath day is not linked to anything except time. As long as we have time, then we have a Sabbath day. And we live in a dimension that includes time. So those parameters exist, okay? And so let's just understand that, because I think that it's important that we have to kind of take those moments to say, well, law forever? Well, for as long as the link parameters exist. Okay, which, by the way, means that it doesn't go away, because what if the parameters get put back in place, like a third temple? Well, guess what? It will be back in play again. The Levites will be the Kohanim again, and they'll be doing their job, and the contributions will go the way they were supposed to go. All of those things will now go back to them as required by Scripture. All right, verse 39. Prepare the one lamb in the morning and the other lamb prepare between the evenings. So morning and between the evenings means afternoon. So the morning and afternoon sacrifices or offerings. Everybody's mostly familiar with that phrase, the morning and afternoon offerings, the morning and afternoon sacrifices. The phrase between the evenings, though all of a sudden the genius brand new Messianics read that phrase and they don't understand when the Passover is. Because it says, and you shall slaughter the lamb between the evenings. They know it means afternoon in other places, but they get all messed up all of a sudden because it doesn't fit some new doctrinal understanding that they were thrown by somebody. And so they end up on the wrong day in the wrong way trying to keep the Passover. It means afternoon. Okay, so these would be the times the offerings are made daily in the Mishkan. So boker, it says, is the Hebrew there, boker, which means morning. Okay? And then arba'im, which means afternoon. So twilight. So it goes until, yes, the sun may have set, but you still have light. That's twilight. Okay? When was Yeshua killed? Between the evenings. When was the Passover lamb supposed to be killed? Between the evenings. What time was Yeshua killed? 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay? And what is sundown generally in Israel? Close to 6 o'clock. So it's getting that last couple hours before sundown. That's between the evenings. But if you don't understand the phrase, because not all languages have a word for certain things, okay? I remember learning Romanian with my wife. And so I learned how to say good morning, and I learned how to say good night. I said, well, how do you say good afternoon? There is no good afternoon. Okay? So you have, like Bună dimineața, good morning, okay? Then you have Napta Bună, which is good night. And so then I came up with Bună afternoona for the, I guess Bună ziua is a good day, right? Something like that, all right? So I just made my own word up because they don't actually have a word for that. Well, the Hebrew doesn't either. It's called between the evenings. And so it's afternoon. Just take these places where these things come up to help you when you start arguing with people who want to argue about when the Passover is and what between the evenings means and all that other nonsense. It's afternoon, okay? Because we all know that there was the morning and the evening or the afternoon offerings or sacrifices, okay? All right, then we get to the last one I want to reference here, which is in chapter 30 and verse 9. So it's almost the last verse of the Torah portion. It says, do not offer strange incense on it or a burnt offering, etc. So this idea of strange, well, just the word strange, okay? The word strange here is unauthorized. In other words, it's not that it's strange, like, that's weird, what are you doing? Okay? Everything about it may have been actually proper. It just wasn't proper because it wasn't an authorized way of doing things, or an authorized time to do it, or authorized person doing it, or it's in the wrong place, like you shouldn't put certain things on certain altars because it's not authorized to be done that way. So I don't want you to think like someone looked at it and goes, man, that's strange. Well, that's weird, or that's bizarre, because that's what we think strange means. It simply means unauthorized. Don't do something I didn't tell you to do the way I told you to do it. Don't do it the way you want. Do it exactly what I told you, and if I didn't tell you, don't do it. Now, this is important because in Leviticus 10, okay, and we'll get to that obviously when we get to the Torah portion there in a couple of weeks, but in Leviticus 10, we have a problem with the sons of Aaron that I know Rabbi mentioned all the sons, and Nadab and Abihu had a problem. And so in the end of chapter 9, and this is one of those places where the chapter break messes you up, okay? If it wasn't for a chapter break, we would know this is a continuous flow of events. So at the end of chapter 9, it says in verse 23, Moshe and Aaron went into the tent of meeting and came out and blessed the people. And the steam of Yahweh appeared to all the people, and fire came out from before Yahweh and consumed the burnt offering and the fat on the altar. And all the people saw and cried aloud and fell on their faces. Okay? And so that's an incredible event. And then Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, saw this. And they were like, that was the coolest thing we've ever seen. That's probably what they're thinking. And so they go ahead and each take their fire holder and put fire in it and put incense on it. And then they brought this unauthorized fire before Yahweh, which he had not commanded, right? Unauthorized. And fire came out from Yahweh and consumed them. And they died. He's like, he says, what I tell you to do is not a joke. All right? Details matter. If you're not the right person to do it, don't do it. Which, by the way, I see a lot of people out there trying to do jobs that they're not authorized to do. Claiming they have titles that they're not authorized to have. Doing functions they were never anointed to or appointed to do. That can get you in trouble in the vertical above. Don't jump into place. We're going to see over and over again people trying to do that, and it doesn't go well. These two got consumed by fire from above. We're going to see some others have the ground open up and swallow them. Korach. Okay, etc. People trying to step into places they don't belong. They're overstepping, usurping, undermining, and not respecting the vertical structure. Aaron and Moshe were appointed to do this. Aaron's sons were not supposed to do that. This is such a serious thing that Aaron is even told, he says, I don't want you, don't tear your garments about this. Don't do, they deserve what they got. Get over it. Don't make the same mistake they just made. Wow. Your two oldest sons just got killed for being dumb. Now people say, oh, but they were drunk. Because it says later in verse 9, do not drink wine or strong drink, you nor your sons. Nowhere does it say they were drunk. Now, they might have been, which also would have maybe given them the bravado to go and do what they did. But let's understand, this is about unauthorized fire. Because a lot of you are thinking, well, strange doesn't kind of relate to things that you might be doing. You might do something unauthorized, though. So I want you to have the same fear that this was meant to create for people in those days for doing something unauthorized. You may want to ask permission. You may want to get authorization to do the things that you need to do if you're not sure, because doing things unauthorized can get you in a lot of trouble. The vertical structure is everything. That's what Yahweh put us here to figure out and learn how to be a part of, submit to, trust, and be blessed by. And so, yes, Aaron and Moses went out there and this incredible thing happened, and the boys should have just sat there in awe like everybody else. But the problem wasn't being drunk. They were drunk with ego. Oh, look at everybody thinks Moses and Aaron are so great. They're going to think we're great too when they do this, when Yahweh does this for us. See, some of you watch me and think, well, I want to do what he does. Well, if you're anointed to do it, you will. If you're not, be quiet, sit down. I'm not trying to be insulting. Because a lot of people out there think they're teachers who have no business teaching. You're going to get mad hearing me say that. I don't care. It needs to be said. You're going to see in the Torah portions people that think they should be doing jobs that they were not given. Yahweh does not take that lightly. It does not go well. As a matter of fact, it brings death. All right? So you want to do something you're not doing? Get authorization. Ask the anointed person that you're working with to see if you have some talent or gift, and you might or you might not. But then you also have to be willing to hear, I'm sorry, but you don't have it. And some of you are afraid of hearing that. Or you'll just ignore it and just go and do it anyway because you believe you have it. Korach thought he had it. He said, well, Moses, you guys think you got this bracket going, you and Aaron. Why can't I just do all these things? Actually, Aaron and Miriam thought they had the same problem with Moses, right? Hey, Moses, come on. You know, we're your brother, your sister, etc., and it didn't go well. Yahweh says, no, I picked you all for your roles. Stay in your lane. Don't go out there and usurp a different role just because you don't like what he gave you. What do we tell the children when they were little? You get what you get and you don't get upset, right? Right? You tell it to the kids, you get what you get and you don't get upset. Be happy Yahweh gave you something. And you know what? If you're happy with what he gave you, he may give you more. Who knows? Somebody's got to do the job he gave you. Why shouldn't it be you? He gave it to you because somebody had to do it, and he thought you were the one. But I don't want this job. You know, I don't remember anywhere, Yahweh asking anybody if they wanted their job. Did he ask Moses if he wanted the job? Aaron? Any of the prophets, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, anybody? Did he ask them, by the way, would you like the job? He never asked their opinion. He decided which of the different children of Levi, which of the Aaron's cousins, etc., they were going to get different things to do. He just decided, you're going to do this part of it, you're going to do this part of it, you're going to do this part of it. He didn't ask them which one they felt like doing. Hey, I've got 3 different tasks to do. Aaron and his sons are going to be the high priest, and then I've got these other ones. So the Merari and the Gershonites. Okay, you guys pick whichever one you want. Didn't happen that way. Okay? But you don't want to allow leadership and vertical structure to dictate into those things. Yeah, your book tells you all that. Every example you have is that he did the placing, the selecting, and the positioning without asking anybody if they wanted it or not. Or would they rather something else? What you do see sometimes is guys like Moses saying, I don't want the job. I don't speak well. Why are you going to send me? Now, the rest of you are walking around going, well, I could do that. I could do what you do. Well, maybe you can. Maybe he'll put you in a position where you can. Until then, have peace with where you're at. Amen? Amen. All right, so that's going to cover for my part. If you got comments or questions, yep, okay. Oh, yeah, you can come and get this. And there's a tissue box on the bottom of it. That's good. All right. Are you guys ready there yet? Almost. Okay, so we're going to begin with Shama Steve.
All right, I got this is what I saw from 27:20. It talked about bring clear oil for the light. So clear definition is transparent or unclouded. So it needs to be clear so as it burns without a hindrance, because if there was impurities, it would flicker as it burned. So my question to us is, how pure is your burn for the Father? Do you allow your impurities to cause your light to flicker?
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. Very good. All right, Rocky.
Thank you. So on Exodus 28:3, I know you said how that's basically the gifts that they gave to those talented men that had that skill. Mm-hmm. But I look at it deeper. I mean, I'm always looking at something that I can relate to, and I look at it as that this is where Yahweh blessed me with his Ruach spirit and opened my eyes. He popped that delusion bubble, and he showed me the truth. And he showed me you and your teachings. And I back that up because, and then also it talks about it in First Thessalonians 1:17, how it says that he, I'm skipping part of it. It says, he may give you to the spirit of wisdom and revelation and the knowledge of him, and the eyes of your understanding being enlightened. You know, and that happened to me, and I seen that, and it brought me here. I moved here. I was without a doubt convinced. But then I realized I have this flesh. I have this garment of flesh. And I'm supposed to have this garment of light. It talks about this garment of light in Revelation, that someday I'm going to have that. But also in 1 Thessalonians,
in chapter 4, in verse 3, it says, "For this is the will of Yahweh, your set apartness, that you should abstain from the sexual immorality, that each of you shall know how to possess your own vessel, this own garment, in sanctification and set apartness and honor." So it's telling me I have this will, that, my will has this choice that I can reject this truth, even though that Yahweh made it available to me. He put it in my mind. He gave it to me in this intrinsic nature and made it, because it has to be. He has to be able to give it to me that without a doubt I know it's true. And then I have to either accept it or reject it. And it's been hard, especially with getting under the authority, walking under that structure. That was something that really bothered me, and I've been trying to disqualify you in every shape of the way, in every way. Constantly in my mind, I'm always trying to do that, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is so difficult, because my flesh doesn't want it. It doesn't want to die. It doesn't want to give it up. Did that make any sense?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Look, and that's why some people have jokingly, referred to the role that I play sometimes as a flesh killer, right? All right, so what Rocky was doing was, okay, so I made one point with the spirit of wisdom, and he said, well, if I'm looking for any way to apply it to me, this is how I would apply it to me. He's saying to himself, that's how he would apply it. And we do have verses that talk about how he has selected you, and that he really knew you'd be where you are now, from the beginning, because he already knows the end from the beginning. So he was waiting his time to pop your bubble when he did pop your bubble, so that you'd be called to do these things. Also knowing full well that at that point, this would be very challenging to do, because you will have been walking and existing in that flesh suit long enough to have those challenges. And so certainly I think not only do I understand what you were saying, I think a lot of people could relate to what you were saying, So I appreciate that. All right, Janet.
Rabbi, thank you so much. I was rereading 29, I think it was 27, 21. How the Aaron and his sons were to tend tended from evening until morning before Yahweh. And I was thinking immediately when I read that, I was thinking about you and Robertson, and how I see your role, like you take it so seriously, continually, nonstop, serving, and that servant heart. And you say, we didn't choose you, we were chosen, and I see that role taking it to the highest level, and I so much appreciate what you do, Rabbi. Thank you very much, and Robertson and everybody here in leadership. But I also, as you were talking about how the breed, most of it is related to the old. And so back when I was dead in the Christian churches, we were reading so much the Gospels, right? And I almost feel a level of fear going back and reading, because I'm so new with this walk. I'm learning. Thanks to God, you're here and you're providing so much for us and bringing so much understanding, right, in the Torah. But I almost feel like, okay, so most of it relates to it, but I feel like I need to have more of the fundamentals to go to it and really understand it better. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Look, I think we even have it in Focus that came out about recommending to people how they should study, as opposed to just reading the book. And study would be teachings, as opposed to doing your own self-driven or self-led studying. Because if you're going to self-study, then you're limited to what you know. Okay? If you have a teacher leading you, then you're limited to what that teacher knows, which should be, if it's your teacher, more than what you have, right? So if you're going to read the New Testament, I would maybe slow that down a little bit and focus a lot more attention reading the Old, or at least doing studies so you understand, or let a teacher like me, who's like right now going through a lot of the book of Romans as part of this teaching on sin, help you understand what it's talking about and how that connects back to the Old Testament. Or like I just did in this Torah study, connecting the Old into the New, as you started to see things with the oil, maybe dealing with, maybe go back to Matthew 25 and read the parable of the virgins, and it may make a lot more sense, right? Or you go back to Ephesians 6, and now the armor makes more sense, all right? So these are things that kind of connect together, and that's why you have a teacher to do those things, that help piece it together. But, you know, all of you out there, I don't know how to say this in a way that's going to make sense to some of you. But when you finally find your teacher, stop being your teacher. Okay? Stop being your teacher. If you find your teacher, let your teacher teach you. Because otherwise you won't be able to really receive, because you're going to be continuously confusing yourself with your own stuff or the other teachers you're listening to. Find a teacher, drop everything else. That's your teacher. I don't mean a teacher. I mean an Ephesians 4:11 teacher, the fivefold teacher. All right? And then stop all the other stuff that's only going to make it harder for you. Because you have only what you have. What every pastor ever taught you, what every rabbi, whatever input you had, what your family members taught you, friends, etc., that's all you have. Oh no, I've got the Spirit now. And the Spirit led you to a teacher. Okay, so let that teacher teach you. If you don't understand all this, I know I did a teaching called Learn and Teach the Torah, which is, by the way, not instruction for you. It's an instruction to you as to why it's an argument for there being teachers. Okay? Now, yes, ultimately you should be able to teach it. You got to be a student first. Oh, but I study the Word. No, study it with a guided, do a guided study with a teacher. Look, I've got 2,800 videos, I just looked the other day, on YouTube. Over 600 whatever teachings, and then the rest of them are break-up pieces and those teachings and everything else. You got more than enough of a curriculum to work with, okay? Which covers most of the book, at least all the functionally critical pieces that you need to live this walk. I don't cover a lot of the historical things like Chronicles and Kings and Samuel and those kind of things, okay? But all of the stuff that has to do with what you need to functionally walk this out is already covered pretty much. Okay, whatever isn't covered will be covered soon. And don't get overwhelmed with it. You need all of this stuff. And you need to understand it. And if you want to teach it, well, then you really need to understand it. Okay, you can't just take a math class and think now you're a math teacher. You got to go through a lot of years of education to then get qualified to teach something. And by the way, almost none of them that I could ever, I don't know of any that are self-study. Oh, they're self-study. Oh, no, wait, but you're reading a book written by a teacher. Or you're watching videos made by a teacher. You didn't just figure math out by yourself. Somebody had to teach you. And so even if you have the building blocks, like let's say you know the basics of math and now you're trying to figure algebra out, you still need a book. And the book is written by a teacher with the idea of explaining to you how to do the different things that you know how to do. Because you already know how to add and subtract and multiply and divide, but now there's more to it than that. And so I'm not telling you never read your book. I'm just saying is that at some point you need to stop trying to do this on your own and submit under a teacher. Where do you ever see any of the disciples sitting around reading the scriptures? I mean, even the Old Testament, because obviously the New Testament didn't exist. Where do you see that? Except for, what was it, Nathaniel, he was under a tree, reading. But do you really see this? Okay? Because they had a teacher with them who was teaching them all these things. All right? And so I'm not trying to be offensive, insulting, or anything else. I'm not condescending. I do all of this to help you. Why do you think I do all these things? Every time a teaching is finished and I have to do a new one, I'm thinking, what is missing that I haven't covered yet that you need in terms of your walk and growth and transformation into Him? Is there anything I haven't covered? And that's when I even ask you guys, what can I cover that I haven't covered yet? I don't do interesting. Not interested in doing interesting. I don't want you to just go, wow, that was interesting. I want it to be, wow, that was transformational. Wow, I can use that right now to become more like Him. Okay, that's what I want to do. And that means that you, and these are things, by the way, he gave you a teacher because you cannot do this on your own. You will not figure this out on your own. Some of it maybe, but not really. Okay, only to whatever point. If your ears are open, then every time you've heard me speak, I'll say something, you'll be like, I never understood it that way before. It never occurred to me to think of it that way. I never saw that before. Because that's what the teacher is supposed to do. Not because I'm doing those things to impress anybody. That's him impressing you that it's coming from him. But yet I have people who've said to me, oh, I've been listening to you for 2 years now and I haven't heard anything. Well, then you haven't been listening. I mean, excuse me, the person said they hadn't learned anything. So, well, the problem's the student, not the teacher. Because you weren't listening. Because even if you listened, you didn't hear it all. You got to listen to it again. Some of you have already listened to some of these teachings 4 or 5 times, and each time you still get something that you missed the first 4 times. So anyway, hopefully that answered the question, Janet.
Yes. May I ask one last question,
Sure.
Rabbi? Okay, so I was going to Matthew, right? So the woman who had the flow of blood for 12 years.
Yeah.
And so then came from behind and touched the tzitzit of his garment. But then he said, for she said to herself, if I only touch his garment, I shall be healed. And I went.
It's Matthew 9,
Yes.
19, just so people know.
Yes. So we've been reading a lot about garments, the garments that the priest needed to wear. So I guess I wanted to see if you had any. I mean, I know you said that she was reaching for the tzitzit, but Yeshua being the priest, I mean,
He wasn't a priest like the Levitical priest.
No.
He wasn't wearing anything but normal garments, except he was wearing tzitzit.
Okay. So there is no garments, I guess,
He was just like everybody.
just like everybody. So it was
Yep.
just.
He wouldn't have stood out in a crowd. He wouldn't
Okay.
have.
Okay. Thank you.
But he had the tzitzit, and the tzitzit were the symbol of vertical instruction. Right? Yahweh said, "Wear these to remind you to focus on me and to do what I say and to keep my commandments." And so that was the symbolic thing that she would reach out for. So she was reaching out for his tzitzit. Okay. All right, Ashley.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi. I have a question more historical than halakhic, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
To go into the temple or the set-apart place, you have to be clean, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if they're sprinkling blood on the garments, does that mean that they had 7 separate garments?
Oh, as far as sprinkling the blood? Look, the sprinkling the blood of the things that were done the way they were done was part of that ritual. I don't know how that all played out, but you had to be in a state that was called tahor in order to go into the temple. Okay, and certain things would make you tameh, which meant that you could not go. So these are things that were done as part of that temple service. Look, at one point, Moses sprinkles blood on everybody, okay, as part of the covenant. And so these were things that were done. Now, of course, you got to remember, if he's doing this, he's not doing it, well, it's a matter of where in the temple, related to the temple, would they be doing these things, okay? Because if he's sprinkling blood on people, he's not inside the inner court or the inside of the house. He's outside, okay, where the people would have been. So you have to just kind of keep those things in mind, location-wise. And there was different protocols to be in different parts of the structure of the temple, okay?
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. And then I couldn't hear everything what Janet was saying, but I had a question about TC, so I hope I'm not repeating her question. But I noticed with the garments that there weren't any TCs. Is that earlier, before that was brought in, TCs were brought in? Or?
Yeah, you don't get the seats until Numbers, okay? So it's a later thing that you run into, okay?
Okay, so TCs didn't come out until
we have, it really is, it follows the man who was gathering, wood and sticks on the Sabbath. And Yahweh says, you guys need something to remind you not to keep messing up and not to be paying attention. So I'm going to give you this thing that you're going to wear, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, so that's Numbers 15, and we're actually years probably from that, in terms of the timing of the events. All right, Chris.
Okay, so thank you
And
for
then
that.
live stream, you're right up next.
Okay. I had a question about 27:21, where it talks about evening until morning, but it also says continuously. So was it just during the night, or was it during the day as well?
You know, it doesn't make it clear from that particular verse. We have the understanding, at least I do from a historical point of view, that it was always burning. Okay?
Okay, that makes sense. I was thinking maybe they kept it at night only because it was dark out and they would have light, but I guess, yeah.
It was
all
meant
the
to be
time.
kept burning all the time.
Okay. And then also, I wanted to think about the sin offering in chapter 29 and in verses 13 and 14. I was thinking maybe that the idea of all the internal organs being symbolic of your heart and your mind, and having that be accepted in Yahweh's place versus the flesh, which we want to die to the flesh in verse 14, and the skin and the dung. I wonder if that could be more like a symbol.
Well, look, it's certainly, as I say all the time, if what you're putting together works, I'm good with it. And so that works. I mean, it works as sort of a metaphor for what you're trying to say, so that works. I mean, I have no idea if that's what he was trying to communicate here, but certainly it works.
Okay. And I want to know if there's a reason why there's the sin offering as part of the anointing of the priests, or what that has to do with it. Without any sin that I see.
Right. I understand that. There is probably more we would say about this when we get to Leviticus, okay? Because I'm trying to think it's going to open up some stuff that we don't need to open up till we get to Leviticus. So hold that question, Chris, when we get to Leviticus. Because in the first 5 chapters, it's going to cover the various offerings, including the sin offering, and then we'll understand that a lot better. All right. And Rebbinson's nodding her head like, yes, we'll cover that when we get there, okay? Good. All right, live stream.
Okay. I think you may have answered this one. Christian Dennis is Rabbi. What's your opinion? Why do you think the Levitical priests were not required to wear tzitzit?
You know, I answered that. It wasn't that they weren't required to wear them. It wasn't part of their garments, but it was something that was given to the people after the problem in Numbers 15. Okay?
Okay, Carmela.
And remember, the whole life of the priest was to remember the commandments, and they were there to give judgment about the commandments and instruct people in applying some of the commandments. So it was more for the Levites and the priests weren't having a problem knowing about keeping the Sabbath and not gathering when they shouldn't and these kind of things, okay? Now, of course, they did offerings on the Sabbath, but they only did what they were told to do on the Sabbath. So their whole life was obsessed with focusing on the commandments, where other people had lots of other things to do with their life and keep commandments while living their life. All right, next.
Carmela Lazarus says, it seems like with all the blood being sprinkled and poured on the altars that it would be a messy place. Were there instructions for cleaning the temple?
There are instructions for what to do with the ashes. A lot of the stuff, depending on where it was on the altars, would have gotten burned up, and then they would have wiped those things down and scrubbed them down and brushed them down, whatever kind of instruments they would have had to do all of that, because they had to then gather the ashes and deal with those. He doesn't give a lot of instruction with that. Next.
Okay, Ashley Williams, we've seen that the sacrifices, even the wardrobe, needed to be performed according to the pattern set out. Is this why Cain's sacrifice was not accepted? Wrong items used or even unauthorized?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, remember Sabbath. What is the significance of the fat on the burnt offerings? Why does Yahweh, want the fat of the animals during the burnt offerings?
The cholesterol, No, I'm kidding. Look, there are a lot of things that Yahweh does that we don't understand. And he sets things in motion that we don't always understand. He requires things that we don't always understand. Because sometimes he does things just because he wants to see if we'll just do it the way he says that we need to do it. All right? So I have no idea necessarily when it talks about the fat. Now, bear in mind, sometimes the fat is talking about the fat. Sometimes the fat is talking about the choice piece. Okay? So unless you give me the verse, I wouldn't be able to give you a sense of which is which. But sometimes when he wants the fat of an offering, he's talking about the choicest piece, not necessarily the actual stuff we call fat in terms of the physical nature of the material that was part of that offering. Okay? Next.
Okay, Gabriel Powell says, I don't understand why Israel was needing manna and quail every day if they had the ability to make bread and animals to eat, or was the bread that was flour made from manna? Thank you for everything.
Okay, so these are questions that come up a lot. I don't have a good answer for them. I mean, they clearly left with their livestock when they left Egypt. So they had animals, and they could have, eaten those animals at times, but realized that those animals were, I'm guessing, this is how my guess would be, those animals were needed for lots of other uses. Okay, they were beasts of burden. They provided skins and wool if it was the sheep and those kind of things for other purposes. So they had to be fairly efficient and effective with when they decided to slaughter these animals, not just use them for food. Plus, because they didn't stay in one place all that long, it wasn't that easy necessarily for them to raise more, okay? And so they were constantly moving and other things were going on. And so these were the challenges. So I don't know for sure, because it doesn't say. I mean, some people might scratch their head. And I hear this come up all the time going, well, they had all these animals, didn't they? Why were they starving? But there was a reason they didn't choose that they thought they could eat those animals as food in general, okay? And of course, if they weren't stopping any place very long to grow anything, they didn't really have grain and stuff to make bread with. Okay, so they had the manna that they could eat. And occasionally, I'm sure they went places where they could maybe trade for some from flour and stuff. And sometimes they stayed someplace long enough to try to plant the crop. But they also didn't know. Sometimes they were someplace for a long time. Sometimes they were there for a couple of weeks. I mean, some of their stays were pretty short. All right, because Yahweh just kept them on their toes all the time. He said, don't get all comfortable. Because at some point, I'm going to move, you're going to have to pack up and move. Which, by the way, let that be a lesson in all your lives. Because some of you want to do certain things, maybe move here or whatever you want to do, but you're comfortable where you are. Does Yahweh want you to be all that comfortable where you are? It depends on where you are. I mean, if you're where he is and where everybody else is, maybe he wants you to be comfortable there, but maybe where you are, look, if you're by yourself, you're already uncomfortable. And you don't have other people to walk this out with, you're uncomfortable. But there's other parts that are comfortable. Other parts that you've got a routine in and you have things that are sort of the comforts of where you are. I'm sure they went to some places where they stopped for a while that they all got pretty comfortable and were able to get their flocks doing their thing and the crops doing their thing and kind of just had routine starting to develop. And next thing you know, the cloud moved. The fire moved or the cloud did not, something moved. It was like, oh man. Okay? Because it can't be about all of that stuff. It's about him and what he's doing. Because sometimes people ask me, well, should I move? I don't know what you should do. I know what I would do. Okay? There wouldn't be any place that I would be that I wouldn't, pack up and go if there was a place to go. Okay, if I found an anointed, appointed, and a community forming, et cetera, there would be no issue, no question. I would move. Okay, my wife can tell you, there's no doubt. I would just pack up and move. I'd figure out a way to make a living wherever it was and find housing, wherever, but I would move. But, what is the but? Didn't Yeshua say you need to love all that stuff less than him by comparison? He said, you need to love, it says, whoever doesn't hate mother, father, sister, it doesn't mean hate. It means love less by comparison. Mother, sister, brother, father, whatever, all the stuff. You got to love them less than him. Otherwise, it says you are not worthy of him. Wow. Because some of you are still loving others more than him, and that's why you're not moving. I'm not saying this to get everybody to move here. I know that some of you struggle with some things because your heart is still mixed in where it's attached. And he says, I want all of your heart. Okay, don't be splitting it up with all these other things. And so you're still attached. You're attached to where you live. You're attached to your job. You're attached to all these things that are messing you up. Well, I really struggle keeping the Sabbath because I'd lose my job. Why are you attached to your job? It's a job. Okay? I'm going to mess all of you up. Well, not all of you. Some of you know this is true. There's no such thing as a good job. There's some well-paying jobs. There are some jobs that you can enjoy a little bit, but it's a job. Okay? There are no good jobs. They serve a purpose. So some are functionally more desirable than others. Still a job. It wasn't meant to be fun and enjoyed and everything else. It's meant to serve a purpose of making the funds that you need to live on and provide for your family. So why are you all attached to that? Oh, but if I move there, I can't make what I make here. So what? Where's your priorities? So you'll do something else, or you'll have two jobs, whatever it is you need to do. What is the they talk about that pearl of great price? What are you willing to do for that? Because some of you are not willing. And then you get here and you're still not willing. And you tell me that your pride and your ego get in the way when I tell you to go get a job at McDonald's or whatever. Oh no, that's beneath me. Well, I don't know. Why isn't being broke and begging me for help not beneath you? I mean, oh, you're not ashamed of that, but you'd be embarrassed to be saying, do you want fries with that? Okay? At least you get paid for that and you're doing honest work. Okay? And so, anyway, next.
Okay, line upon line says, without a temple today, what do daily sacrifices look like?
It says in some of the places when it compares these things, it says, look, I didn't really want the animal sacrifice. What I really wanted was your heart. I wanted your prayers, your praise, your heart. And so you see Daniel. What did Daniel do when there was no sacrifices anymore and the temple was destroyed and Babylon came and took them all away? He prayed in the morning and in between the evenings. Okay, that's where the Jewish tradition is now, to have those services twice a day. You have the shacharit in the morning and the mincha in the afternoon. Okay, they actually do a third one, Mariv, at night. But I'm just saying is you have the morning and afternoon matching the offerings. Okay? Which, by the way, that's another way for you to know that it means afternoon, because the Jews today in the middle of the afternoon will all stop, the Orthodox Jews. So if they're in a city, they'll all gather at one store they all know that they can all go to, because they feel like they have to have what's called a minyan, which is they need 10 men to do it. And they'll go in and they'll get together. Julie and I, my wife and I, have been in New York. We've been in a store where the owner said, we're going to be closed for about 10 minutes. And nobody had to leave or anything. We just stand there. But, he said, we're not doing anything. And then other people came in. They took out their prayer books and they did their prayers. And then they started business again. And it was probably about 3 p.m, right? You worked for a dentist that did that. My wife worked for a dentist that he went into his office at 3 p.m, and he was in there for about 10, 15 minutes, came back out. But it was the morning and the afternoon, prayers. Okay? So that's what that could look like today. There's no instruction saying that you have to do that. I'm just saying if you wanted to do something that kind of mirrors what the temple was doing, you could have that. All right, next.
Okay, Mark S., Exodus 27:20. Is this the commandment reference for lighting up Shabbat lights?
No. There is no reference for lighting up Shabbat lights. It's a Jewish tradition.
Lise had a question, is where did the 12 stones come from?
There was a particular house in Egypt that they were robbed as they were leaving, and they grabbed the stones. I don't know where they come up with these questions. I have no idea where they got the stones, okay? They had a lot of jewelry and things that really were taken as they were leaving Egypt, and I'm sure that's where they got the stones from, all right?
That's all we have, Rabbi.
I mean, I said it at first as a joke, but that's probably where they got them from. I mean, is that, they asked the Egyptians for everything when they were leaving, and out of all of that, they had stones. All right? All right. Thank you all for the study tonight. Excellent job. All right, so who's going to go ahead and close us up? All right, how about, let's see, Rocky, come up and close us out. If you all rise, we'll close in prayer.
Oh, Yahweh, I come before you and I thank you. Thank you for showing me the way. Father, teach me the Torah and wash this delusion away, because boy, do I need it. I just ask that you're with us in the drive home and keep us safe, and bless us through this evening and tomorrow's Sabbath. In Yeshua's name I pray.
Amen. Amen. I'm going to come over here by my beautiful wife. Anybody else wants to come on this side of the room? We're going to wave our Shabbat Shalom goodbyes. This Constantine. Still awake, barely? No, he's not. I said barely. He's tired, yes. You can lean on me. All right. So everybody wants to come over, come on this side. Okay, I got a few more coming. You can come on this side too. All right. Okay, so we're all going to look at the camera over here, and we want to let everybody know out there how much we appreciate them. So we're going to thank them for being with us, and we're going to tell them how much we really appreciate them by wishing them a Shabbat Shalom, and then we're going to tell them that we love them, okay? On 3. 1, 2, 3.